a family member, your business, or something. But as soon as they're older, they've got two set, you know, situations in the sense that, yeah, you got front on the side. If you meet this criteria, you can have this as backwards. So, and I think that's the issue. The major racing. Well, normally, then it's no, exactly, and that's what it is. And I think that's why they're out. Yeah, as much as we can. Yeah, at least be on the side of it. We try to make right decisions.
Yes, it is. Now you one meeting unless you're much better now.
Yeah. Walking again?
Yeah. Well, that was in November, yes. And actually, still a little less than 15 weeks ago. I'm actually
basically
establishing by Friday, carrying on like that.
it meets the criteria for a variance, for exemption, but they've answered it and provided all those things. Instead of it being subjective, unless it's something we
I'm glad it didn't go. Sometimes people have an operation.
So were you out? Did you say you were out sick? Or something? Is what you got behind?
Kind of a,
so that they're all
Oh, that's what it was.
a bit of a dilemma. I mean, it wasn't that
they're
bad.
not making subjective
Sometimes you don't
decisions.
know whether to take the risk to
That's
go
what
through.
Tim Brown does.
That was it.
And I agree with that.
Bless you, Gad.
Yes.
Glad you went through.
I am.
And
Much
so that's, they just, so that, you know, everybody, we're all consistent. And, exactly. So they all say that.
Karen, you ready? This time we will call the February 23rd, 2018 Walton County Zoning Board of Justice meeting to order. If you would, please stand as we have our invocation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Dixon, if you would lead the invocation, please.
Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you now, and we ask, Father, that you would be with our nation as our people mourn the tragic loss of life. Father, we come together in one heart, one mind, and we lift up the families of those who've lost loved ones. We pray, Father God, that as the most innocent among us, our children have become the targets of very evil people. We pray, Father, that you would protect our own children, as our best efforts to protect them through life will never be 100% effective. And so we pray, Father, that you would care for and protect our children as they grow and they mature. We pray for a day, Father, when we will know peace. Peace in foreign lands, but also peace here in our own nation. But until that day arrives, Father, we pray for the protection of our children and our families. And at this moment, Father, we gather together and we hold up these folks who have lost so much. And we ask, Lord, that you would comfort them and give them the peace of Christ. We ask this in the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you. You may be seated. We do appreciate the opportunity to say we have a full board, and it's the first time in several years. Is that right, Mr. Dice?
It's been a while.
We thank the board members for being here. We appreciate Mr. Dice being our attorney, all the work that he does and caring for making this possible, and patience. And appreciate it, and planning staff, appreciate y'all being here. Do we have the legal counsel for the county? I mean,
Yeah. Miss Christmas.
who is she?
This is Heather Christman. She's the assistant county attorney.
She was
What's
here
her
last-
name?
Heather Christman.
Okay, I guess Miss Noyes is out
Maternity leave.
maternity leave.
Yes, sir.
Well, I did not recognize, that's why I asked, I needed last time, and
You've been flying under the radar.
you don't say too much. We need to see your credentials and your certificates and,
I'll assure you she's been very busy.
oh, I'm sure. Mr. Dice, do we have any announcements need to be made at this time?
The only one I'll give the board an update. We had a oral arguments for the Sanctuary by the Sea. That if you recall, they had requested a clearing permit. It was about 2 years ago. Finally, Judge Lewis allowed us to have oral argument on the matter. He did not rule. He's going to make a ruling, but we had that hearing yesterday. So,
How you feel about it?
feel like we should win. This is Judge Lewis's. We've got about 5 or 6 more in the queue. They have
Right.
not. However, this will be the first one that we've had Judge Lewis rule on. So, it's kind of a question mark. I don't know what kind of things he likes to look at and whatnot, but I feel pretty confident based on what happened at the hearing and the law.
Good deal. 60 days before he makes that ruling, most likely?
He didn't give us the timeline. I asked him if he wanted us to do anything. He said he'll take care of it. I can tell you that we had oral argument on another case 8 months ago, and we still haven't got an order from him.
Wow.
So,
Well, since we're gonna win, we'll be patient, right?
that's the thought.
At this time, we ask each and every person here to anticipate speaking before this board. If you would, please stand, raise your right hand, and swear that the testimony you give before the board is the truth. Mr. Dice.
Thank you, sir. If you raise your right hand, do you all swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God? Thank you.
First item on the agenda is going to be presented, I believe, by Mr. Jim Martin on behalf of Ted Turner and Bradley Clapp. Mr. Martin is, Jim Martin will come before the board.
Mr. Martin's not here. I'm going to be speaking. Ted Turner.
You, Mr. Turner?
I am.
Well, I guess we'll let you speak. Come on. You spoke last time, didn't you?
I did speak last time, so thank you.
This is the one that we started, and we was hoping y'all would get together and.
Yes. So,
Okay.
yes. So thank you for having me back, gentlemen. And so since we've all slept since last month, I just, really just want to summarize, the meeting that we had last month. When I purchased my property, I didn't know that I needed a variance. I followed the rules that was given to me by the covenants of the HOA. I followed what was given to me by the survey that I got prior to purchase. And I followed the documents that was given to me after closing by the HOA in terms of appropriate setbacks. I submitted a plan. The HOA asked me to flip my garage. I did flip my garage in order to work with them. And then various things happened in terms of them with this document. And suddenly my setbacks changed, and I was faced with 2 front setbacks for my property. So what I'd like to do, because last time I think my nerves got the best of me, so please bear with me, I don't do this very often, but I would like to take a moment just to share with you just a timeline, because I want to make sure that everyone's perfectly clear that I did not do this after everything was done and I came running in here and, you know, wanting people to help me and to be treated any differently or special than anyone else. So I did make 7 copies. I do apologize. Last time there were only 7 of you. I see there's 8. So I do apologize, but may I give this?
Sure. Mr. Dietz, we're going to enter this into evidence.
Yeah, I would recommend make it part of the record.
Exhibit
Just,
A?
Yeah, petitioner's Exhibit A.
So enter.
I can share one.
We'll give, we need to make sure we give one to Karen at the end of this.
I'm okay with that if you are.
Y'all You have 7, right?
I have 7, yes, I'm sorry. I do apologize.
I'd like for you to clarify your request. You're requesting 7.5 foot front setback from 20 feet to 12.5. You also requested a rear setback from 15 feet to 7.5. You asked for a 7.5 foot variance on the front and the rear. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
7.5 on each side, yes, I need.
Not on the side.
I'm sorry, on the
and
front,
rear.
on the fronts. Okay? So I just want to, I apologize for the handwritten page, but I just want everyone to know, so in March of 16, I submitted my plan to the HOA. I had to submit it in person because they required me to bring it in big sheets, and so I hand delivered it, so I don't have written documentation. In August or April of around 22, on or about, the board asked me to flip my garage, and I went ahead and did it. And if you flip the page, you'll see that 4 days later, the board even, you know, because they were wanting to work with me to do that, they even asked me if I could submit a hand-drawn sketch that would suffice in order for me to flip my garage. So I told them no, that I wanted to make sure that I submit a full plan, and so I did. So if you flip the page on May 2nd, I submitted the plan with the full garage being flipped, as you'll see on the following page. 14 days later, on May 17th, I received an email from the HOA asking me to cease and desist on anything that I was doing, that they
You need to
had...
slow down.
Oh, I'm sorry.
If you would.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
If you don't mind, just.
Yep.
Okay, and what day did you receive this cease and cease?
On the 16th of May,
Okay.
and they asked me to stop what I was doing, that they were going to be looking into some things with the county. If you flip the following page, 3 months later, I received this document. And if you look at the second paragraph, telling me that my setbacks have changed. Up to this point in time, after 5 months, I had no idea that those were my setbacks and my setbacks were going to change. Not one communication, not anything from the board indicating that they were even leaning towards doing this.
And why do you think that your front setback was 12 feet?
Well, when I received the document from the HOA, the document I received showed that the front setback was 20, the street side, which I thought was a side setback, was 7.5, and the back was 15. But when they gave me putting in the new document, I have 2 fronts. So I have a front setback at 20, and my side setback has now become 20.
Okay. I think I'm beginning to remember.
It's what the plat shows.
Pardon me?
The plat shows that, and I have it there. When I submitted it, it's I'm sorry if this is confusing.
Should be the very last page in your package.
Okay. Now, which street did you think was the front to start with?
Heidi Heights was going to be the front, sir.
That's what you consider front?
Yes, that's yes, sir.
And the Village Boulevard is considered side setback, is that correct?
That's correct.
And that's on your, is that a plat? Is it platted that way?
Is that, I got a survey stating that, sir, so I'm not a expert in this, so I can only say that's what the survey told me, so I don't know.
You have a surveyor that surveyed it that way?
Absolutely.
Okay, Jeff, educate us.
No, I mean, the plat shows that there's two 20-foot setbacks, so there was a survey that showed otherwise that would be an error.
Okay, this number one is showing 20 feet, so there is two fronts to this house?
It appears that way by plat.
By this plat right here.
Well, mind you, if I might clarify, this is not a subdivision plat. This is not recorded unless it's part of either the plans that were approved by the development order or recorded in the covenants and restrictions that are incorporated in the warranty deed when selling the property. This is not a subdivision plat. And the subdivision plat of record makes no reference to setbacks.
No, now,
In this neighborhood, that huge boulevard that runs east-west of the entire property, it appears they're trying to create a landscape buffer between the one-way streets with the boulevard and the properties that face the street.
Mr. Burgess,
Yes, sir?
now you saying this is not this is not part of the recorded plat?
No, sir, it is not. And may I ask Mr. Turner a question?
Sure.
Okay.
What,
I can clarify that. That is not the plat. That is the approved site plan from the original development order,
Okay.
evidencing the intent to create this boulevard vista corridor and open space. That was approved as part of the original development order.
but now,
The setbacks do not show on the plat.
this is not recorded, this is not a plat.
It's official public record of the development order. It's not recorded as the plat. That
And the
is not the plat. That is the approved site plan that came with the development order.
And the plat is different than this?
The plat doesn't have as much detail as this does.
Do we have a copy of that?
I can get one. There is one in the second item that you have.
Yeah, there are two variances requested here. I think there's an example
Yeah,
on.
but.
Do you think we need a copy of the plat?
That,
It
the second one is phase 3, so, I think I would need to find the phase that this one is in.
Go ahead.
But I could get that for you.
I agree with Ms., and I really only said so for a clarification, not to misconstrue or use the term plat when it's not. I do agree with Mr. Carpenter. It is public record. It is part of the development order as approved by Walton County and the BCC. Mr. Turner, may I ask, were you provided a copy of this with your closing documents?
Which document are you showing me, sir?
The one, the one that shows it's actually titled Overall Site Plan,
The one,
C4.
I don't believe so, sir, no. From my best understanding, but I did get a big, thick document, so, but from my understanding, I don't recall getting one at closing.
Okay. But you were provided covenants, restrictions in your closing
Yes.
pertaining to and your deed is subject to them.
That's correct, but
Okay.
but in the HOA, the covenants said 20 for a front setback, 7.5 for a side, and 15 for a rear.
Okay? Okay, answers my question.
Okay.
you said that your surveyor identified the front setback, or the front of the house. Is that what you said?
That's correct. I mean, so what happened is I found the property. I mean, I'm a novice, but, you know, I do what I need to do and follow the rules that I think that most people would follow. I contacted a realtor. The realtor came in and said he had received a document. I'm assuming he received it from the HOA. and said, here's the setbacks, it's 27.5 and 15. And I said, that's great. We even went over there and started walking it off to see where the house would be. The house directly behind me has a 7.5-foot side yard. And so the realtor said, well, look at that house, it's 7.5 feet. He went over and counted it off. So I had it on paper, I saw it. I hired a survey to make sure I understood what I was buying. And when the surveyor brought it back to me, he brought it back as 27.5 and 15.
Is your surveyor here tonight?
He was here last month.
Is he here tonight?
He's not here, I don't think so.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. So after 5 months after submitting my plan, I received this letter saying that my setbacks, have, at least to me, and my understanding, had changed. And then if you look at the very bottom, the HOA also elected to make it all retroactive. So even though my plan had been submitted in March, they asked me to flip it in April. They sent me a cease and desist, basically telling me to stop for 3 months. Then they came out in August, told me my setbacks have changed from my understanding, and then told me it would be retroactive to anything that had not already been approved, and they went back 5 months to where my application had been sitting and denied, and basically told me it was going to be denied.
Very sympathetic to the issue with the homeowners association.
Yes, sir.
But I think, Mr. Carpenter, this is a county issue. This is not, even if the homeowners association did not stop the construction or cease and desist, it's still a county issue. Is that correct?
I believe it is. Because he's got to get a permit approved by the county,
And he,
and that's where we are.
but he was not there at that point.
Not yet.
When he received the cease and desist, he had not received a county permit. So then he went to receive the county permit, and that's when y'all said it does not
I think
meet the
that's correct.
setback.
Yes, the cease and desist was not from Walton County.
So it's really not an issue with the homeowners association, it's an issue with the county. Even though, you know, sympathetic with what they told him and saying they could do this, could do that, but it's a county issue,
Yes, sir.
okay? Do you understand that?
I do understand that.
Even
yes.
if your homeowner association would have approved it and you went to the county would have denied it.
Okay. And so I guess may I ask another question?
Sure.
Last time we were here, they said the document had been misplaced. They rediscovered it. So if I would have gone during the time prior to it being rediscovered, what would I have been told?
Are you talking about the homeowners association?
No, I'm talking about the county.
Would-
I don't know that our answer would have been any different at all.
We would talk to them about what was said, because my memory's not good, but go ahead.
Well, but just know, this last time we were here, there's been conversation surrounding that the document that's being used here today had been, I don't know, misplaced, hadn't been used for years, from what I was told, but not formally. And then it was rediscovered, and when it was rediscovered, the HOA asked that the county reinstitute. And I mean, I even have a letter from the HOA telling me the county had found it and has decided to.
Well, let's let the county address that.
And this particular file from 2004 was in archives. Our archives for the last 3 years have been periodically mined and sent to a scanning company in Mobile. So there's a period of time where we don't have access to the public record. However, this one did come back. We produced the original approval, and that's what we're here to talk about.
Now, explain to me from 2004, there is a public records that, is it recorded? Is this document recorded?
Not all public records are recorded. Only certain public records get recorded.
Which one was lost, or which one was gone?
There was nothing lost. It just wasn't available to us to put our hands on it because it was out for scanning.
And that was, it was from 2004 until when?
No, this is the original development order file during the
Okay.
time that this gentleman was looking for that.
But the plat was recorded?
Yes, the plat's recorded. The development file is intact. The development file shows this as the approved site plan.
And all that's recorded?
No, it's not.
No, the
Development
plat.
orders aren't recorded, but they are public
The
records.
plat?
The plat is recorded. The
Okay.
plat does not have setbacks dimensioned on the plat.
Would it matter if the county code is 27.5 and 15? Does it matter if it's,
This still is consistent with, when this project was originally developed, they didn't ask for any reduction in standard county setbacks.
right?
They can always propose something larger than standard county setbacks.
Right.
And in this particular case, they chose to have a feature for this particular development that provided a 20-foot setback against the boulevard entry that traverses the entire site. I mean, that's the way the site was designed, to have this vista coming in off 30A and coming in off of.
So if they had not have done that, would it have been a 7.5 foot?
If they had not shown the dimensions of these footprints on this plan,
Right.
it probably would have been.
And this is what he's referring to, that he didn't have it to start with and then it was found, or the county.
I think that's what he's talking about, yes.
That's what you're talking about.
I'm just a
We're
simple
gonna,
man, yes.
I got somebody we're gonna bring up
Okay,
and clarify that.
that's fine.
Sure.
Is it normal to not show the setbacks on the plat?
We now require that. Back in 2004, it wasn't required. And typically surveyors don't want to put any more on the plat than the owner wants on the plat. And if you look at surveys from 15 years ago, they have the basic things that are required by Chapter 177. Setbacks are not one of those things that is required, although we now require them to be put on plats.
When did we start requiring?
I'm not sure that I can give you a formal date on that, but within the last 2 or 3 years.
But if you look at the plat, I was just given this in the general notes. Point 8 gives actual setbacks.
And
it
that
says
is-
here that the follows, the front will be 20, the side will be 7.5, and the rear is 15.
I'm sorry, I was reading something. What was that?
The document that you have in your hand,
This one.
on the right-hand corner, number 8, point 8 is very small.
That's the Burgess, you see it?
Yes, actually, I'm familiar with what he's referring to. There is a surveyor's report or general notes on the plat, and it does list them as a statement, not graphically. And it reiterates the statement that the front is 20, sides are 7.5, and the rear 15. And if I may, I think this boils down to, it's really not a county issue, and well, I don't believe Walton County ever changed their position on the setbacks. It appears as though the developer validly imposed a greater setback of 20 feet along Village Boulevard. And so really, from the county standpoint, they're 20, and the front of the lot is defined as the narrower in dimensions of the lot, which in this case would be on Heidi Heights. That's your 20-foot setback, at least as far as the county's concerned. Side, even the 45 degree could be considered side, and what's directly opposite at 180 degrees, and parallel and perpendicular, is the rear, which would be on the east side of the lot. The only debate here, in my opinion, is whether the 20-foot setback is legally valid on Village Boulevard. And, yes, sir?
No, go ahead.
You know, I am hearing that it is part of the covenants and restrictions. They were disclosed to Mr. Turner. They are part of his closing package, are believed to be, and of record with the county.
But
I'm sorry, in the closing documents that I received, the document stated the side was 7.5.
It stated, was this, I asked you if this.
No, that I don't know. I
graphic-
thought you meant in the covenants that was
I
provided.
know it's stated, and
Okay.
in the covenants, but if this, you know, I'm assuming this was included and/or part of the development, or which really, you're asking for a reduction in the front and the rear, okay?
But, go ahead.
So I think the front setback on Heidi Heights is clearly 20 feet. I'm not seeing a hardship that would produce a reduction by 7.5 feet, and in the rear, it's 15. It's shown that way graphically, it's stated that way. Those two aspects don't really coincide with what he's asking for here,
The rear.
or his site plan.
They were counting this as the rear also, instead of the side.
That's not us, that's Roland Studio, or the county, or anybody else. My opinion, and may I share something?
This is why he was asking.
Well,
Because of the side.
may I share would
I think
A
what I
sketch.
would recommend is, at this point, allow the applicant to finish presenting
Right.
his evidence, let staff present their evidence. That may be something that's good
Very
for whenever it's up here at the diocese to discuss amongst yourselves after
thank you.
all the evidence. has been
But what I wanted to clarify is that, and I believe if Mr. Carpenter will, correct me if I'm right or wrong, at one time, the county would have went along with the 7.5 that he was told on the boulevard. And then this document was found to show that it was a 20, so therefore it needs to be recognized as a 20. Because what he's saying at one time, that the boulevard was a 7.5 foot. But when this document appeared, it shows a 20.
That document predates any development on this site.
Okay?
It was part of the original approval of the project.
Okay.
I had a question.
Go ahead.
When you were here last time, you had another email from somebody, and I was thinking they addressed some of your 20 feet and something at that point,
That's
From
correct.
the-
This is the CAM. So why we're requesting a variance in the back for 7.5 feet is when we submitted our plan, we fit strictly in with the 27.5 and 15. There was no variance requested. And what happened is the HOA came and they didn't like the fact that the garage was located on Village Boulevard. So they asked us to flip the garage and put it on Heidi Heights, which we did. And because of that, that resulted in the house being a little bit longer because we flipped everything. And it resulted in needing a variance for that. And the HOA told us that they would support that and actually gave that to us in writing.
Okay.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. Then you also, and that's just for the summary, I'm sorry. And then you asked if I would try to go back and see if I could move the house. And I attempted to do that. So I have that I'd like to share with you. And, once again, I'm a novice, so please bear with me. And I do think I do have A to B, so.
And we'll just make this applicant's Exhibit B for the record, Mr. Chair.
So entered.
And once again, if my memory is correct, you asked me if I could shift the house moving forward or to the south, considering that if we would get the 7.5 setback that the board said that they would support. And so we worked with it, pulled the house back to that intersecting line that I believe that's where the point was to move the house to, and we were able to move it an additional 6 feet 5 inches. And so it would be a setback of 13 feet 11 inches.
That's on Village Boulevard, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Heidi Heights Drive, recognized as 20. Village Boulevard, you asked them for 1311 from the 20 because it's recognized as the front. the rear setback, you asking for a 7.6 that shows on the dotted line,
Yes.
and everything else appeared to be okay?
So technically, we would be asking for a 6-foot 1-inch variance from Village Boulevard. We were able to move the house to set 13 feet 11 inches off the setback.
Okay, anything else?
That's it, sir.
Any questions? Jeff, you quiet tonight?
Well, I'm still questioning why the garage wasn't able to be moved over to this setback line on the opposite.
We could move it. We were just focusing on the house and moving it since the garage was already within the setbacks. But we just focused on the house, so that's what we looked at.
So you're talking about moving the garage to fit in this corner, up in this corner area?
Is there heated and cooled square footage above the two-car garage?
Yes.
And it's attached to the main house with the bridge?
Yes, sir.
You see
So
that?
it sits about 5 or 6 feet off of that side setback, and just struggling to understand why the garage and the house would continue to move in to get us closer to 20-foot setback on the street.
Well, like I said, we focused on moving the house. We didn't focus on moving the garage. I apologize for that, but that's the way that we looked at it and moved it.
I think there was a conversation last time though from, that, you know, you need to move it over and shift it. I thought it was the board's understanding that you were gonna look at doing that because it makes perfectly sense because.
Well, if that was the case, I apologize. I thought we were talking about moving the house and getting it closer to the garage.
Okay, well then let's address this right now before we go too much further. Do you understand what Jeff is talking about?
I do.
Do you understand why?
Yeah,
It's hard for us to understand why you can't do that to make this easier for us to help you on the rear setback.
Right, no, I understand.
So you would you like to continue this one more month for you to consider that?
No, I'm sorry, no. You know, once again, I live 6 hours from here. This is the second time I've come. I don't mind coming a third time. I have a job. Every time I come down here, I take 6 days off or 3 days off work. I've spent over a year on this. And,
We're good with
and
it.
once again, I appreciate the offer, sir.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Laird, do you have something you want to add to it?
So,
We're doing some
Hal
stuff-
Laird, sorry. L-A-I-R-D. Mr. Addressing Mr. Chick. On here, I think maybe I was blame on that too, here listening. There was about 6 feet where your diagonal, as Mr. Burgess said, could be considered a side versus a rear. And you're saying, I guess the thought was, we already asked for the variance along Village. If we moved it over, felt like we would be getting into another variance into the rear. But is the guidance here to move it?
You're already asking for a pretty significant
rear
variance, and recently we've granted a variance to the angled rear setback.
Okay, I guess when him and I both understood that just taking it to that line, because that could also be considered a side, kind of in our thoughts.
The angle.
And so to the angle, when we brought it to the angle, and we could shift the garage on site at the time of building, and we just kind of left it there, just being focused on the house. But if the thought is to come back, shift this over here, come back here, and see where we are versus that 6'1", that could be pretty achievable because we're already in the rear, just bringing it here. And so I think we were just focused on bringing it away from Village Boulevard to the actual connecting diagonal point. And that was like, okay, and we're getting it off of Village. I don't think it was, I did hear you understand moving that there and the connecting bridge. I think it was on our part, it was just misinterpreted.
Well, and just so we're clear, I mean, just because you make those, I mean, you would still have to come back, obviously, and let the...
Right.
Yes,
board look
absolutely.
at it. We just,
Absolutely.
I want to make sure that it's understood that
Yeah.
just because you
Correct.
make those changes doesn't mean approval.
And also to
Mr.
kind of clear up, so I'm sorry, go ahead.
Mr. Dice, if perhaps they are in agreement that we denied the variance on the Village Boulevard, but we would approve the variance in the rear setback, then can we do that tonight because it's already been advertised in the rear setback?
Well, I think you would need to hear from staff and
Yeah, but-
those here. But yeah, I mean, you could deny part of the variance request and grant it on the other part. That's
That
within
way you wouldn't have to come back.
if that's what the board, I mean, the only issue you would have is, based on how they maneuvered everything, you may not know the exact minimum requirement for the variance. And that's when, that's one of the things that the board's supposed to look at is a minimum that's required to grant the variance if a variance is granted.
I
So,
think, Jeff, if you're saying if they move it over, then that'd be on the side over there, they wouldn't need one. But it would still also be in the rear.
So it would reduce the variance down just to 1 in the rear. If we could achieve the 20 on Village, moving it further over. I mean, I
That's
think
what you
that's,
was talking about, right?
Right, they've got room to continue to push the house over.
When the house, I was talking to Jeff, when the house moves over, it will be closer than 7.5 feet to the diagonal one in the corner, would it not?
It would.
but that can be shifted, the garage can be shifted down to the front setback and then over.
Yes, the garage would, but the house, when you shifted the house to match the garage.
Is there
if you shifted it-
a requirement in the neighborhood that the garage be a detached structure? Do you need to maintain the 3 or 4 feet between the two structures?
Not that I'm aware of. No.
Because I understand that there's been a lot of misinformation but there's not a hardship with this building on paper. That there's been no foundations poured. There's still an opportunity to, I think you've got an incredible number of people that are opposed to this variance being granted from the neighborhood.
Sure.
And so you're asking for a pretty significant variance on the street and another significant variance on the rear setback. And so anything that can be done to reduce those encroachments is gonna help you guys
Yeah,
out.
and I recognize that, and that's a misstep on our part. They're not moving it back and trying to achieve that further off of Village. I would like to go back real quick and to clarify when the setbacks. You touched on it last time. I don't think Mr. Burgess was here. Typically when the surveyor, to answer your question, goes out, gentleman buys a lot. That form that we're talking about, the diagram that's illustrated that shows the setbacks in the DO was not in the closing documents, because if it was in the closing documents, the HOA would have caught him the first time. It wasn't illustrated within those documents. He went, showed the plan, moved it on Heidi Heights. They said they would support a variance. He showed that last time. We were given direction to try to take it further away. We were just taking it to the angle, thinking we were doing a good thing by keeping it out of the other. We're looking at the rear setback, but it's all one rear setback. And so when people go buy a lot, get the closing documents, surveyor goes out, the notes are 27.5 and 15. The shortest road frontage in this case would be 20, and the survey that he got showed 7.5, and 15. So that's until Walton County makes that public knowledge, or if it's buyer beware, you need to go do your research. I don't know one owner that goes out and buys a lot, gets a survey, goes and, hey, let me see the DO file after he's already spoken to the HOA. They didn't know anything about it until they went up, and he came back 3 or 4 months later and said cease and desist because we found this document now. They learned about it at that time. So that was the hardship that we were leaning on, saying that bought the lot, acting in good faith, moving the house. What do y'all want me to do? Just trying to build a house. Wanting to be part of the neighborhood. That's all he's trying to do. And then all of a sudden, we're going to change the rules on you because they found a document that they still haven't made public. I mean, it's public, excuse me. But if the plat says one thing and there could be confusion, there should be something saying, hey, there are greater setbacks than what the LDC guides you on how to set your setbacks if listed on the plat. And that's where the confusion came in.
How far are these drawings? Do they go beyond plans and
Ready to
elevations?
submit, it's engineered, ready to go. So we were just sliding everything over.
Let us continue.
Yep.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you. You get opportunity to come back. Is there anyone else here to speak on this variance? You raise your hand first, come up and state your name for the record.
My name is Bruce Hilbert. I'm a full-time resident and property owner in the village. I'm just going to approach this from a layman's point of view. If I may approach the bench. I took that this morning on top of the hill in the village. Village Boulevard runs from 83 to 38. Pretty close to a straight shot. To the left of me, standing there, would be the property in question. And you can just see that the development is tailored. All the trees line up all the way down. You get to the top of the hill, it goes to a very narrow 2-lane with a 20-foot, 15-foot divider in between. So for somebody to have their garage coming out into that, it wouldn't be enough to turn around. You're at the top of the hill. There's a safety issue. Nobody else accesses the street with their garage on that narrow street.
Are you talking about Heidi Heights?
Yeah, I'm talking about the village.
Village.
Yeah, at one time they talked about moving the garage.
Yeah, but that's not an issue before us.
Okay.
No.
But
The
but
plan-
my point is, okay, I haven't seen that.
Right,
My point is, it's a tailored community.
right.
And if you stand there and you look all around, there isn't variances of the 20-foot to 7.5-foot. They're all the same.
There's no variances on the Village Boulevard.
Michael testified there were like 2 last week, and they were built before the village went up. So no, they're not. Linda testified last week. She tried to get a variance, and she had to abide by the 20-foot.
Okay.
Okay? I guess I'm going to take this back a little farther. They talked about buying the property. The realtor said, 7.5 foot's fine. The surveyor said it's 7.5 foot fine. The architect out of state said it was fine. Long list of people said, yeah, it's fine. If he's got a problem, he should go back on those people. For a title agency to show you the wrong information, it was me, I'd be suing them.
I agree.
Okay? So say that the association did some wrong things, changes rules, things like that. This should have been all sought out. I mean, I purchased there. I went to Michael. I asked to see the covenants. Common sense makes you do it. And then if you're just standing there, common sense says it's not 7.5.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Yes, sir.
Okay.
State
How
your
are you?
name.
My name is Michael Galvin. I am the president of the HOA at the Village of Blue Mountain Beach. I've been involved in this project. I've lived there for over 6 years. I think that one can always talk about history. We can talk about he said, she said, and I understand all those things, but I just point out several facts. Number one is that the village has been very deliberate. We want to build on our properties, but we want everyone to follow what the setbacks are. The HOA is empowered by the state to represent and to follow up the building to ensure the quiet enjoyment of our property that will develop properly. So we're very interested in maintaining the setbacks that are established in our covenants. And I would like to give you a handout because I think one of the key factors tonight is, gee, I didn't know. And I've known since 10 years. And it gets down to where things are said, you ask enough people, you can get any answer you like. And I would say, in respect here, a lot of people are asked questions, and so you have opportunities. Let me give you this. I'll give one of these a call.
We're going to exhibit this, Mr. Knights. Homeowner Association.
We can do public A.
Public A.
And I think sometimes it's good to see visually what we're talking about and what has happened in a timeline.
Actually, 1 second.
Well, timeline.
So we kept this picture. We need to keep this. So this would be public A, would be the photograph, and this would be public B, what you're getting at. So we got to clear that.
I have another one. Mr. Knights, do you have one?
I just got the original.
Everyone has one? Okay, go
Thank
ahead.
you. So what I'd like to point out to you, we have two pieces of paper. One is a Excel spreadsheet, shows houses being built. To help, we then went and colored in where houses have been built in dark black, showing you that these are corner lots. And these are the types of lots that we are referring to. And if we look at the Excel spreadsheet, now we have to use county records, and county records are off probably by a year with respect to when did you purchase, when did you build, et cetera. So we don't really know precisely. But we can begin in 2004. We have houses that were built to 20-foot setbacks on both sides. You can follow along. Every time a house has been built, gee, they have 20 feet on each street. There was no question about what our setbacks were. I would point out to you two prime examples. If you look on Village Boulevard and you look on the Nancy Taylor Lane, this is Linda Ebling's house. She purchased her property prior to Mr. Turner. When she purchased her property, she came to us and said, well, what do I do? We said, well, what you need to do is go to a Florida registered architect, which we have on staff. We pay to keep and give you advice. She went to him and he said, gee, your setbacks are 20 by 20. She said, well, I thought they were 7.5. He says, no, they're 20 by 20 because you have a corner lot. Okay, so now, gee, she built 20 by 20. She was told prior to Mr. Turner purchasing a lot, going to a registered Florida architect, recommended by us, who knows the facts. Here are the facts, 20 by 20. No question. She found that out. She built her house appropriately. Well, let's go down to Ed's house. Now, Ed's house, if we go over here on Margaret Macklin Way, it's the second one up, that's Ed Clicata. Ed's house was, he bought his lot around about the same time, a little bit afterwards. Gee, what are my setbacks? Well, why don't you go ask the registered Florida architect? And he will tell you what they are, and he was told 20 by 20. He built 20 by 20. Our community is based upon following our covenants, following our setbacks. We need green space. We want to look at the quiet enjoyment of our property owners. We feel that we're very reasonable. It was already pointed out that where it did not affect green space and we had a lot of extra land, yeah, we did support a diagonal variance. Other times we supported air right variances where, you know, we allow some things coming out where they are reasonable and they do not negatively impact the life of our residents. We feel that anything other than the 20 by 20 setbacks, and even now on the rear setback, which we had tried to figure out ways of working with this, but we're very strongly opposed to this, and our whole community is opposed to this. You have many letters from us, and many letters have gotten lost. My letter's not in, I've written 3. We have other people who have written letters and not in. So we have, our community is universally opposed to this variance.
Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
There is conversation, hopefully there's conversation that if he moves that garage over to that boundary line, that there's a possibility he would not need a variance on the Village Boulevard. He will only need it in the rear. I believe, was it not your testimony before that you would agree with the variance on the rear?
We told him that we would certainly would consider, we thought it favorably. We have subsequently, at that time, Matt Myers is the backdoor neighbor, so to speak, for this house. Their house is an existing thing. And we had chatted and said, well, might be would work. As we have studied this and looked at it, what the affected party, who would be the people with the affected there, the rear door neighbor, they said, really, this is not good for us. And we've looked at it, and we've sat in chairs and said, yeah, you're right, this is not good for you. So we would not be supportive of that change in the variance. We are not, we want Mr. Turner to build a house because he has a quality product. There's no doubt about it, he'll do a great job. However, we feel that it has to be built within the setbacks that are established for our community.
So at this point, you're not in favor of any variance?
The knowledge that I have today from what's in front of me, we are opposing what the question is, which is the change in the 20-foot variance, change in the 7.5 setback variance. Don't have anything else I can comment. I don't have any other data to comment on. I don't know what else has been presented.
Pardon me now?
I do not know what else has been presented. I don't know what he's, I don't have a picture.
What's been presented is that he's asking for a 7.5 foot setback on the side and on the back.
On the back, we oppose the 7.5 foot, we want a 15 foot, and it's because it affected homeowners when you sit in.
Okay, we've done been through that, and you also oppose on the 7.5 on the village, is that correct?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
We
But
are
there's also
asked,
testimony that, I just want to clear this
Sure.
up unless I remember correctly. I think there's, the last month, there was testimony that he was in charge of your homeowner association, did send out letters that was contrary to the rules and regulations of your H&O, is that correct?
no. No. We have never said anything that was contrary to what our.
Okay, can I ask you this, was it also that there were some changes in the language of your homeowner association from the last meeting?
No, not with respect to, we have, our covenants have been revised and resubmitted, but
They've been revised recently.
yes, but they are not impacting this. It has to do with
Like
other
I said,
issues.
my memory's not good, so I appreciate
Your memory's great, yes.
Anything else?
No, it's, the only question we have, or only position we have is that when a community opposes something this strongly, we're asking you to support our community.
I think that point is well taken. We've
All
been
right.
here about an hour. We're going to wrap this up. We got other issues to deal with. Anyone else? Mr. Turner, you want to come back up and address any issues or say anything to the board?
Yes, sir, I do. And once again, the HOA did change. I have copies of it here, so from when I bought and versus from the one that they changed in August. And the only thing I can say is, Michael talks about that everyone knows it. I submitted my plan in March. To me, it's very simple. I've always said I'm a simple man. It's like a child in a coloring book. If you color outside the lines, you see it pretty quickly. When I submitted my plan in March, it took them 5 months to tell me that I was outside the lines. That's something that's not a common practice. You would know that almost instantaneously.
Okay.
That's it. Thank you.
But one other thing, is there any way that you could shrink your house? You got a total of 5,000 feet. You don't want to shrink your house any way to make this work?
Well, it's actually 3,400 square feet living space. I mean, the issue is with the way that the house sits with the back side. It's only.
I'll just ask you a real simple question. Would you consider shrinking the house, yes or no?
No, unfortunately.
One
I
other
could not.
question, would you consider moving the garage over to that boundary line and try to get off the 20 foot?
I could do that, but I can't come back, so I don't know what that. I assume that's a no. I'm sorry. I mean, I only have so much capital, personal and emotional capital that I can spend, and I've been on this for a year. And
What I'm trying to do is work with you. I think Mr. Dice said that somewhat we could. is that you won't have to come back if we take that in consideration.
Yes, if you
That
take
if
that-
you're willing to move that over to that boundary and get off of
Yep.
that 20-foot, and we would consider the rear setback. Now, I'm not telling
Yep.
you that this board would give you the rear
Yeah.
setback, because we have opposition now. Last month, I think they didn't, tonight they do.
Yes.
And that's what I'm asking you.
Yes, sir, I would agree to that, yes, sir.
You would agree to move
Yes.
it if we give you the rear setback?
Yes, sir.
Anything else?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Close it, public discussion. We're done. Close it, pardon me?
If there's anything else we need to deal with staff.
Oh, I thought we done it is. Sorry about that. Thank you for reminding me. Staff?
Yes, I'd like to enter the staff report
In the backup.
Yes. into record. I think a couple of items that I think Mr. Burgess did a good job of explaining the difference between a plat and an approved site plan development order, and that yes, sometimes you can reduce setbacks due to hardship. There are the questions in the variance questionnaire, where is this the minimum that, let's see, let me find that. Apologize here. Oh, okay. Number 5 in the staff report is that the granting of the variance is necessary for the reasonable use of the land or building, and that the variance as granted by the board is the minimum variance that will accomplish that purpose. So that is one of the items that the board would typically address. And if the board finds that there is a hardship, the staff would not be adverse to the granting of the variance.
Thank you. Is that it? Mike? You good? Close it, public discussion. Any questions? Anyone has any questions? Close it, public discussion.
Let me ask
Maybe.
one real
Quick.
quick one from Vivian or Mac. When I look at the conflicting information he's been given through this process, I think that's a hardship. Would you agree?
I'm not sure I can go there.
Okay. Thank you. Motion to close.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion? We need a motion. We need a motion to approve it, we need a motion to deny it, or we need a motion to modify it, but we need a motion.
I make a motion that we approve a reduction in the rear setback to 7.5 feet from 15.
Clarify your motion, that you, Mr. Dykes, I think the motion needs to say that, the variance on Village Boulevard will be denied, that the house to be moved to the other boundary.
Well, I mean, I think he can put his house on whatever he's got, whatever that would equate to, but I think if you wanna make a motion to approve, like you said, the rear setback, and then you can do a separate motion, or if you wanna try to combine them, but, to deny the front setback request, because there's 2 setback requests.
Right.
So.
Do you want to combine
make a
them?
motion to deny the front setback, but grant a rear setback of 7.5?
Yes, I would refine my motion to deny the front setback reduction, but to approve a reduction in the rear setback from 15 feet to 7.5 feet.
Should we just clarify the front setback recognized as Village Boulevard?
Both.
I think that's the one that was requested in the
Right.
application.
Yeah. Very true.
We have a motion.
I'll second that motion.
Discussion? You want to start discussion? Pardon me?
Well, I just have a question. Would it be cleaner? Would it be would it be better for us to deal with these two motions separately, take care of the one and then?
No, we got it.
Okay.
Discussion?
I don't really have any further discussion, but I think it would accomplish harmony in the neighborhood and compromise the situation.
Charlie?
I think there's a huge amount of opposition from the surrounding neighborhood. I think he's got a hardship in that he was told one thing, tried to do it, and it's somewhat changed, at least in his mind there. He's got his plans already done. He's spent a year trying to do it. So I mean, like there's at least a good portion of the way started on his hardship, if nothing else. I think this is a good compromise, like he said, in between both parties.
Mr. Fletcher?
Well, I feel like he's been trying to hit a moving target, and if this compromise would work, I'm in favor of it.
Mr. Jeff?
I want to reference the staggering number of people in opposition to this. It's not every day we get this many letters that oppose a variance being granted. It's fairly remarkable. And I empathize with Ed and being in the profession of drawing plans, and I feel like more can be done by the design professional to solve the issues creatively to give you what you want without upsetting all of the adjacent property owners. So I feel like that there was a missed opportunity from the designer to solve the problem.
Mr. Anderson?
Well, there's a lot of miscommunication. I sympathize with the landowner. Also, though, recognize the purpose of the HOA and recognize their authority. So I think that's going to weigh in my decision.
Mr. Dix?
I don't, I think it's a kind of a common theme whenever we come across these irregularly shaped lots, that there's always some misunderstanding about it and how these setbacks are applied. And my sympathy goes out to the property owner. But I do feel like there's some, no dirt's been turned over. I think there's always an opportunity to try and make an effort to match the footprint that you're given on the paper. And I feel like, Jeff worded it very well, that there was a missed opportunity with that. I think if we had some assurance that some of the neighbors would be okay with the back setback, I think it would be a lot easier, protecting that 20 foot on the front and the 20 foot on the side. But as things stand, I feel like that footprint's not being utilized to the best of what it could be used for. So.
We have a motion, we have a second. Ms. Burgess, how you vote?
Aye.
Charlie?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Jeff?
Nay.
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 4-3. Clarify, did you get everyone? The first four of us voted yes, the last three voted nay. Mr. Turner, you received your variance
For the rear
request
setback.
as amended. You will, within 30 days, you have the right to appeal. Homeowner Association, you want to appeal the board to circuit court, you have 30 days from the time we sign the final order. Okay?
We feel this is disruptive to our community and our thoughts, so
Appreciate it.
thank
You need to take, are you coming back or you just need to take it? Okay.
Take a recess.
15-minute recess. We call the meeting back to order. We're going to move along with the second variance request. Jeff Margaretti, on behalf of Robert Stoll. Who's here to bring this before us? Jeff, number 2.
You're up.
You want us to skip you?
But thanks for the offer. Do I just start, or I have to?
State your name for the record and tell us why we should do what you're asking us to do.
You bet. Jeff Margaretin. I am here as the architect of record for my client, Robert Stoll, that owns the property that is called Lot J1 in the same neighborhood that we just got finished talking about. It's on Village Boulevard, and we are 2 blocks down from the previous one on the corner of Chris Court. I printed this. You probably are well familiar with this neighborhood now.
I think we're going to get a motion to continue this at the
Nope.
next meeting.
Nope. No, we're going to get through this quick. It's going to be a beautiful thing. My client, Robert Stoll of Atlanta, has requested these 2 setback variances in order to help remedy what we believe is a clear and present hardship on our property and a unique situation in the neighborhood. The goal is to provide an architectural solution that is more in line with the vision and vernacular of Village of Blue Mountain Beach neighborhood. Based on the established platted setbacks that we all just learned about on the last one of this subdivision, which we all agree includes a full 20-foot front yard setback down Village Boulevard. Based on that, and if you look at our corner lot, which is J2, so we are this one right there. J1, I'm sorry. Yeah, we're J1 on the corner. We are different than the previous one in that we are deemed one of the quote-unquote small lots in the neighborhood. This neighborhood is very unique in its character.
Do we have a copy of that that you just showed us?
I don't know. I just printed this today this is just from the county. It's a site, you have it. Do they have it, the site?
Mr. Chairman, there's a copy of the site plan in the previous case that he's referring to, a smaller 8.5 by 11 set.
From the previous case.
Are you talking about the plat?
Yeah, it's this plat.
The approved site plan for this development.
Oh, you're talking about from the last case, okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Last page.
Yeah.
It's the last page of the last case.
Should I submit
No,
this?
we're good. We're good. This is the one you're referring
Yeah.
to, Mr.
Well,
Carpenter?
what I'll tell you is, if you want that made part of the record, you need to submit it. If there's an issue or appeal, and then you need to submit it. Otherwise, it won't be part of the record.
Oh, then, yeah, here,
When
submit
you
it.
do you need it? You can do it after you get through.
I can get another copy of it.
No, he's saying you can use it while
Oh,
you're
yeah, so submit it.
presenting. You can use it while you're presenting, and then.
Wonderful. And everyone's got small copies?
Yes.
Right on. Okay, so, yeah, so based on
Hang
this.
on a minute.
Yes.
That's applicant A?
Yeah, when he submits it, it'll be out.
Applicant A.
Got it. So lot J1 on the corner of Village and Chris Court is deemed what is called one of the small lots in the neighborhood. This neighborhood has a very unique character. One of the things that makes it so exciting is that there are a series of larger lots and a series of smaller lots, all kind of intermingled. Each one, according to the design codes, carry a little bit different requirements, mainly the same things, but there are some very minor differences in the requirements on the 2 lots. Based on the setbacks of this lot, if one were to build a 3-story home, which is the kind of the maximum, I guess you could go 4 stories, that would be kind of absurd. The maximum amount of square footage that we could build on this lot is 976 square feet. Now, according to 3 stories, is 976 square feet total out of the 3-story, for a 3-story house. As per the codes and covenants, or the design code of the neighborhood, the small lots are supposed to be a minimum of 1,000 square feet. So by simple virtue of the setbacks provided to us, we can't hit the minimum without some dispensation from this board. I want to make a note that we strongly believe, as I said before, in the Village Boulevard View Corridor. It's an essential part of this neighborhood. I believe someone earlier had made a comment about the tailored vista, and I thought that that was a really telling statement because it is very important that we keep these. So in looking at ways to find relief from this, we are asking for a setback variances. That brings us to the unique point about this particular lot. This is, I think, one of only 2 lots in the entire neighborhood that actually has no rear yard neighbor. We have 2 front yards and we have 2 side yard neighbors. J3, which is the neighboring property on Village Boulevard, is fronted on Village Boulevard, and their side yard setback is against our lot. Lot J2, which is on Chris Court, is fronted on Chris Court and has a side yard setback on our lot. We literally have 2 front yard setbacks. We have 2 front yards and we have 2 side yards. So our architecture will respond to that corner condition, maintaining the 2 front yard setbacks to reflect 2 front elevations and 2 side elevations. What we are looking for variance then is similar to the last one. We are looking for a 7.5-foot variance on what would be the east setback. It is our official rear yard setback. I believe that Daryl made a point earlier about the thinner of the 2 frontage is what is officially by county code the front, and therefore the parallel property line becomes the rear. That would be the one against J3. So
looking at your document A01, the setback you're asking is down here at the bottom. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. So if we were able to use that as a side setback, which based on the logic of 2 front yards and the neighbors both have side yards against us, we would then be able to not only meet the 1,000 square foot minimum, we wouldn't be forced into a 3-story rectangular box that just maxed out. We now have the ability to create an architecture that is better for the corner, that addresses the corner, has a different mass on both of the elevations. So we can use that and actually enhance the neighborhood and enhance the streetscape. We believe that doing that would allow us to enhance the view corridor and that we so strongly want to maintain. Both of lot J2 and lot J3, I don't have it, but if you look at the county website, you look at the aerial shots, both of those houses are set up on the more rectangular portion of their properties, more away from the angled line. So we feel that there would be little infraction on that green space between the buildings. In fact, across the street, just over, you can see on Village Boulevard, lots G6, 7, and 8 all have frontage on Village Boulevard with side yards between them. So there's precedent for side yards between a frontage street. That's number one. The other thing, we have 2 setback requests that we're making.
Now, wait a minute.
Yes.
Wait a minute.
There's 2 variance requests in there?
You asked them for a 7.5 to the rear from 7.5, from 15
right
to 7.5, and allow
Correct.
for the extension of 18 inches. That's your second one.
Yes. Yeah, the second setback is one that has been used and approved by this board many times in the neighborhood. It's that the 18-inch allowable encroachment into the setback for overhangs and decks, that we be allowed to use that for habitable space, not on the first floor, maintaining the 8-foot off the ground plane. So what I was proposing in our plan is that we could use 16.5 inches of actual square footage, and then only 1.5 inches, we use a gable end on those bump outs, and then only have 1.5 inches overhang, so we would maintain the 18-inch airspace. I believe that it was mentioned earlier about the variances have been granted for those airspace kind of situations to help enhance the architecture. We want to use those kinds of bump outs in the architecture to address the corners. So now we are addressing the two fronts as we have, we're addressing the two sides, and we're given a little bit more space to get a house that, according to the plans we have that I submitted, still under 1,300 square feet. I looked at all the small lots in the neighborhood and the houses that are built. The average size of the small houses is 1,500. So we're still within, we're not asking to become a big lot. We're just trying to get a little relief so we can meet the minimums and enhance the streetscape.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Any questions at this time? Do you have a question? You have to go.
What is the usable footprint that you like that you had said? You said yours only.
Yeah, the usable footprint it's of the actual ground plane.
No, what if you take the setbacks that are
there now,
that are as they are,
right?
How many square feet is that bottom little spot?
Oh, it came out to like 330 something.
330.
It was like 330. There is a requirement in the code, the design code, that all houses, 50% of the front of the house have to be a porch. And so the porch in the small lots, this is kind of one of those little differences in the small and the big lots. Yeah. In the small lots, the porch has to be a minimum of 4 feet deep.
Okay.
Take that
out of the bottom.
Out of that bottom, because I'm required by code. There's also debate about whether or not this, because we have to now raise one of the other code requirements of the design code is that the floor plane has to be elevated off the grade. And so because of that, we now have to add steps into that equation to get up there. So all of these little things are wonderful, wonderful parts of this neighborhood that really add to the vernacular and give it the charm that this neighborhood deserves. We're just a little bit tighter than all of the others and need a small amount of disbursement here, of dispensation.
I have a question.
Yes.
Again, the cantilevered areas.
Yeah.
At what level or height above the finished floor?
Second floor and third floor, so upwards of 11 feet. I mean, we're talking, I think we're 24 inches above grade. We're 9 foot to the ceiling, to the bottom of that cantilevered structure. So we're 10 feet or more up above. And I think I've submitted elevations, some, design elevations in there as well. And you can see the cantilevered pieces on the two. I drew the two front elevations.
We didn't get those. Daryl, you can see that cantilevered design details in the house directly opposite in photograph number 3.
Okay.
That it's something that they've obviously approved before.
Okay. Okay.
So basically, what we're looking at is this element here pokes out of the house that one minor bit. And, you know, what we're trying to avoid from an architecture perspective is that we don't have this building that looks like a container up on end. It just doesn't want to be a rectangular shoebox that has nothing going on. So what we have the ability to do with these 18-inch cantilevers is really add some very usable space. Remember, if the space is 15 feet wide and I have to take off a staircase, there's not a lot of room in there.
We got that. Did he answer your question?
Yes, sir, you did.
Anything else? Jeff?
I've got questions for Mac.
You want to ask him now, or ask him when we get through with
Mac, are those cantilevers, aren't they allowable? Because I feel like that they've been done for years on a number of projects.
Not at habitable space. We've had a number of projects do them and then come to the code board.
For forgiveness?
And I think we've had some that have come here for variances. These lots, as the subject lot, these are incredibly tiny lots. And these were developed mid-last decade when tiny lots were the rage. I think there's certainly some merit in this particular applicant's position, given the hardship of this incredibly small lot. The cantilevers that are being proposed do not comply with the code, but given the nature of these small lots and the character of this particular subdivision, I would not think that an approval of a variance to allow that would be out of character for this particular development.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I got a quick question for the applicant. Unlike the previous applicant, Mr. Stoll knew the restrictions and the setbacks on this lot, correct?
Actually, no. He purchased his lot well before all of this came about as well.
So when did you purchase it?
I want to say it was about 1.5 years ago. We're getting around to doing this house now, but we had originally, a while back, done a design, and we went into the county and asked them about setbacks, and there was, wait, what's the setback, what's not the setback? The county, I think, originally had thought it might have been a different, it was all this confusion. He ended up not doing the house. That happens, and he called me, I don't know, maybe 4 months ago, and said, hey, I'm ready to do the house. And I'm like, okay, well, just so you know, and because I'm very involved in the subdivision, I've done a few houses there. I gave him the lowdown, and so we talked about it. We game planned. To Jeff's point from the earlier meeting, we looked at all the possible ways that we could maximize what we've been given by Earth.
Have you discussed this with the Architectural Review Board?
No, technically, no, I have not technically discussed it because we're still trying to find out where this is going to be. So,
do you
no,
have to recuse yourself from approving your own?
I will probably do that. It should be noted for full disclosure, I am the town architect for Village Boulevard, for Villages of Blue Mountain Beach. Okay. So I'm very familiar with the neighborhood. I've spent the last number of years approving houses and working with other architects and other draftsmen. In fact, in the last presentation, when Mr. Galvin was so kind to talk about the need for using Florida registered architects on these houses and how he recommended one on the Ebling house, he was referring to me. And so,
We're going to get back to the issue before us,
Yes.
okay?
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to add? Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
absolutely.
Opposition. Please come up and state your name for the record.
My name is Debbie Cooner, Cooner, and I'm here representing a couple of different entities. First of all, I'm the chairman of the Architectural Review Committee and have been for the past 5 years. Of course, I've worked with Jeff and several people in terms of getting their plans reviewed and approved or whatever. I also am an adjacent homeowner to Mr. Stowe's lot. My lot is J2. And I'm also representing my next door neighbors, Sam and Paula Marino, who own lot J3. I am opposed as a homeowner, and Mr. Marino and his wife are opposed as homeowners to the 7.5-foot setback. I'd like to address this real quickly in just two different parts. One, the 7.5-foot back setback, and then the 18 cantilever. From the standpoint of the homeowner, I want to just address that first. I am very interested in keeping the integrity of our neighborhood with the green space open, and I think Jeff mentioned that while having this back setback at 7.5 feet, that it would not really encroach too much on our properties. Well, the reason it wouldn't is because we actually have some green space on our properties, and that is our green space on our properties. And we oppose it because we don't want that green space infringed upon. That is our property to use as we feel comfortable using. So I don't really think that that is an issue as to, that our houses are not that close together. That's one of the beauties of the village at Blue Mountain Beach. The houses are not crammed close together. We have some space between. We have the open village, and that openness and space is one of the reasons why people want to live there. They come and say, oh gosh, this is like nothing else we've seen. So I think that that is a very important part of our neighborhood that we would like to keep as it is. That is one great thing the developer did. I know y'all know we've dealt with a lot of things over the years with this particular subdivision, but that is one really wonderful thing that he did and has made it really good for the people who live there. I do want to address a couple of things from the standpoint of the Architectural Review Committee. This is the first of Mr. Stowe's lots. He has 6 lots in the village. He has been buying them since 2004. This particular lot on J2 was purchased in 2011, and the covenants and everything was in place at that time, so our setbacks were there. And this is one of the corner lots. There are 2 other corner lots that are exactly like this. They're almost to the T, the exact same square acreage. Each lot is about the same acreage. There are also 2 lots that are adjacent to the Ventana subdivision, which have a 10-foot landscaping setback between the 2 subdivisions, so that decreases the buildable space, the building setback on those. And then he has 1 lot that's just off of a street and adjacent to other lots. But those are 6 lots right there that, a total of 6 for Mr. Stowe, that we feel that, this is just the beginning of 5 more trips here to get a variance for those lots. And we just don't really feel like that's the right thing for our subdivision. Now, it may not happen, Mr. Stowe may not, but there is the opportunity. And it just seems like we have a lot of requests for changing the footprint, the setback footprints of the houses, and we just really don't want that to happen in our neighborhood. I do want to address another thing, and being on the Architectural Review Committee and having to go back and be sure that all our documentation is correct, that it's understandable, clarified, so that there will not be any misunderstanding of what the expectations are when you build a house. We had so many questions from people who would call and say, well, how many square feet do I have to build on this size lot or this lot or whatever? Well, we didn't have anything, and there is nothing in our covenants as far as what's filed that says you have to build X square feet on this size lot or whatever. So I did this as the chairman with my committee, and we looked at what would be a reasonable square footage for the lots. And what our guidelines say is the suggested square footage for a small lot is 1,000 square feet. We actually have one that is almost finished being built right now that is somewhere between 900, I think it's 950 square feet right now. So, we have approved less than 1,000 square feet. Then we said that 1,500 square feet was a reasonable suggested square feet minimum for a medium to large lot. So those are not things that are set in stone, but it's just something to give someone who wants to build a house an idea of what they might be able to build on a lot. And of course, we'll answer any questions that they have. So I guess that's really what I have to tell you on that. I do want to address the 18-foot habitable cantilever. I was a part of that in 2016. I believe it was January of 2016. I know y'all don't remember, you have thousands of these come through, but I actually came in with the first builder who ever asked for a variance of the 18-inch cantilever overhang. And it was on a small lot. And he actually built, and Jeff has designed 2 of them. There are 3 houses with the 18-inch habitable cantilever built in our subdivision now. And they're on these small lots. Granted, this one is a little bit smaller because it's on the boulevard, the corners are, but they have been very successfully implemented. That is what the association felt was reasonable, and we're willing to support, and it's a very big help to these small lot builders and owners so that they could get more square footage and get a reasonably sized house on one of these small lots. Now, if your goal is to build the biggest house that you can get on as much as you can get, don't buy the small lot. That's not yours. But of these 6 lots, Mr. Stoll has been buying these lots over a period of many years. And, now's when he's decided to build. Well, a lot has changed since 2004. And I don't think it's unreasonable to expect him to stick with the guidelines that we have and take advantage of the 18-inch cantilever. And I know it can be designed beautifully. We're willing to work with a homeowner, a builder, to get the best product that they can get. But I think that he can get what he needs with these cantilevers. Maybe not what he wants, but he can get a reasonable house with the cantilevers. And it's all on the 2nd and 3rd floor, and it doesn't have to be a straight up box. There's all kinds of things that I know can be done to take advantage of this and make a house that would look beautiful in the village and that would meet the criteria for a house on these small lots.
You're opposed to the 7.5, but you're in favor of the 18?
Yes, sir.
Any questions?
I've got a quick one. Is it typical for the builders and developers to not confer with the Architectural Review Board?
No. Our usual process is to, first of all, have a complete plan, architecturally drawn, everything, site plan and everything, given to the, submitted to the Architectural Review Committee. It goes through our Association Management Service. And then we give it to our advising architect to review to be sure all of the technical details and things that are required by the HOA are actually, the architectural part are actually covered. and give feedback if it's not. And then, once we approve, the association, master association approves it, then it goes to the county.
Let me ask you this, and I would defer to the architects, but if they don't get this variance, can you actually build on that lot?
I think so. I've seen a house on a pretty small lot.
Okay.
I mean,
Real good looking.
Any other questions? Moving right along. Thank you, ma'am.
all right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sorry to be back up to you. My name is Michael Galvin. I'm the president of the Homeowners Association at the Village of Blue Mountain Beach. I want to address your question. Can you build a house on these lots? We've got 6 or 7. So yes, you can. People know what they're getting into when they buy the lots. They know what the setbacks are. You know, it's, if the buyer wants to buy it, he can put a house on it. We have, like I said, we have several. I mean, we got one of them just being completed. We have another one that you have a letter from the individual who complied by this. He has a right across the street. He has on a small lot, small house.
How many square feet?
He's under 1,000.
No, but per,
On a floor.
if you take,
They
if you
probably run.
take 7.5 times 16, am I reading that right, Jeff? This house, if you
It's
take
20
7,
by 16 foot 10.
it's how many square feet? Per floor.
I just did the math, 320.
So he's gonna have a 700 square foot house.
No, it's 3 stories.
If he goes 3 stories, he could have a 900 and some odd square foot house. But he's got to deduct for the front porch.
No, I'm missing something. If you take out the 7.5 buildable, how many square feet is he losing per foot, first floor?
140, roughly.
I came up
16, it's 1610 times 7.5 that he's taken out of the buildable footprint.
112.
What's left is 320 per floor.
320 per floor.
So the house in photograph number 3 appears to have been built to that 20 foot by 1610 footprint, 3 stories up. If you look at photograph number 3 in the package, and I will say that I think it's a very unattractive design solution, but it exists.
I was going to ask if you all would prefer to see a vacant lot versus this house?
No, absolutely not. What we prefer is, we studied this for a bit, and we think the cantilevering that the council has allowed us to have for several of our houses now has been a really good solution. He picked a picture of an ugly house. We have some very nice looking smaller houses that have architectural relief, have detail. So, you know, you pick what you want to show people. We could have picked 3 other houses that look very nice architecturally. What we object to is the change in the setback requirement from 15 to 7.5 feet. It impacts 2 adjoining neighbors, both of which are very strongly opposed. And again, we simply would respect their rights to their privacy and their quiet enjoyment.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Anyone else?
Thanks.
Staff. Vivian, are you disabled? I mean, are you?
I can come up there.
Please do. It just presents itself.
I agree.
Okay. I think you've had some of these before where they did ask for the cantilever, and those were approved. I think there was the design actually helped the neighborhood instead of just the stick houses going straight up and down. And the question here, I think, is is it a hardship, the size of the lot, and have they presented their case to convince you that it's a hardship? Staff does not have a problem with reduced setbacks.
Thank you very much. Do you have a question? Go ahead.
The 1,000 square feet, is that a suggestion, or is that, I mean, like the one lady said?
That's actually in their documents.
the HOA, so that's not really.
Yeah, that's not something that staff would address.
Okay. And Vivian, based on staff's review, is 7.5 the minimum?
Well, that's,
Go with a little less?
we can't really, that's really a subjective
We could-
question because
We could
it's,
change that to whatever we wanted to.
yeah, because we can't determine,
I mean, based on what the plans are that they submitted, is 7.5 the minimum required based on staff review? I guess is my question.
Pardon
well,
me?
they can always adjust the size of the house.
Based on the plans, is the 7.5 from 15 rear setback, is that the minimum? Could they get away with, you know, a 4-foot setback or a 5-foot
Sure.
setback?
Oh, I think the
Sure.
applicant could probably answer
Okay.
that
And then
one.
do you want to also enter in the staff report and the backup?
Yes,
as,
would.
Staff or counties exhibit A? Okay.
Yes, I would like to request that
So
be
enter, yes.
entered.
Thank you. Come back up and,
I'm sorry.
I find it very interesting, I just want to tell you, I find it very interesting. Here you are, the architect recommended by the homeowner association, and you did not go to the design review board and get their approval first.
No.
It was your testimony early that you did
My
not present it.
my testimony was technically no. However, the design review board, for the most part, is myself and Debbie, and there are others on the design review board, Debbie being in charge of that board. We have been in communication about many houses, including this variance. I told her,
Okay.
hey, by the way,
Okay.
I'm getting there, but I think the reason why the answer is a technical no is because what we have not done is made a formal submittal to the neighborhood for a plan. The reason is we're not going to go through, we've just seen what happens when an architect or a residential designer goes through the expense of completing an entire set of plans and then says, oh no, it doesn't fit. Can I shoehorn it on a different set of setbacks? So what we've done here is we've looked at it we've done a site plan and a quick plan and 2 elevations. And we said, okay, we can do this. I discussed it with Debbie, and as the design review architect,
You answered my concerns. Thank you very much.
I did want to make one. I don't know. Well, if it's a point that needs to be made. There was a comment made about how many lots the owner has in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
I don't really know if that's relevant to this particular to this issue.
Okay.
I don't know that, but yeah, he does. But that's not on the board for discussion.
Go ahead.
Is he intending to occupy the property or just sell it or rent it, or what is this?
You know, I mean, he's probably going to rent it, I'm guessing. I don't really know. I mean, I don't know what his plans are. He's talked about moving here, and so he lives in Atlanta. So, I mean, I don't get into the personal decisions of, I know that, they're good properties.
Let me ask you a real quick
Sure.
question. Is there a lesser setback that you think would be acceptable to the Architectural Review Board? That would allow you to stay with this design?
I looked at it. We haven't discussed trying to create a smaller footprint of what would be. What I did, knowing them as I have for many years, and also my client, is looked at what is the minimum that we can create some, livable spaces. For reference, I want you to know that an average small hotel room is about 320 square feet, plus or minus. That's about what it is. We actually have to squeeze a staircase in that space and a hallway, and then a way to get up to the next stair. So we've got 3 of these sitting on top of each other, and we have to get a full kitchen and a laundry room. So we've squeezed. I have a floor plan here. I can show you the. I don't know if that's important at this point.
No. Anything else?
Yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Close it, public discussion.
Motion to close.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Need a motion. We can have a motion to approve it. We can have a motion to deny it. We can have a motion to approve the Cavalier and deny the variance, but we need a motion.
I'll make a motion to deny the variance and allow the 18-inch cantilever.
Deny the 7.5-foot
Yes,
variance in the rear. Is that
Second.
your motion?
Yes, sir.
One second, Mr. Chair. Would it, because it would be a, wouldn't it be like an 18-inch variance into the rear setback? Wouldn't
No.
that basically allow for the cantilever? Or,
Yes.
That's a good question.
Yes, it would.
I mean,
Yes,
that's
yes, it-
basically what you're saying is you'll give them a
Yes.
variance, but just for the 18-inch
Overhang,
Right.
cantilever, right.
So the request is a rear setback. It's 15 feet, so you would be reducing that by 18 inches. So,
Isn't it two different
don't
issues?
have-
well, there's cantilevers on.
You don't have to ask for a variance on a cantilever in the.
Well, if they're using it for living space,
For
I
the
believe
living
it is.
space.
If it was just kind of an architectural, pop out without any living space, I don't know that that'll
So you-
require a variance. I think the issue is because this is living space.
We are,
Correct, Matt?
we are denying the variance on the 7.5 foot, but approving the 18-inch on a cantilever in the setback.
Would that be correct, Mac? Is that?
Yes, if I could clarify, an 18-inch roof overhang or a balcony above the 8-foot level is allowed in the code right now, but it cannot be habitable space.
Okay.
And that is the request, to allow the same encroachment that the code already allows, but to allow it to be habitable space.
So it wouldn't be a variance on the 18-inch, it'd be a variance on the livable space
Yes.
in that space.
To allow that 18-inch encroachment to become habitable space.
You want
So
to
that's
pick,
the way the staff would prefer that the motion be made, if that's the motion.
Yeah, 'cause they're not asking for a further encroachment, they're just asking for the 18-inch encroachment that is allowed for a second floor and above balcony on the two 20-foot setbacks to be used as habitable space.
Bill or Linda?
Well, if I understood the chairman of the ARB, she's agreeable to that. So my motion is to allow the 18-inch variance with livable space
Habitable space.
and deny the setback,
Yes, sir.
Deny the 7.5.
7.5 foot setback.
Everyone,
Well, that's kind of two things in the one motion, so I think what you would do is make a motion that you.
we did it in the while ago, we did it in
Yeah,
one
but that was,
motion.
he's denying it, plus he's giving it one.
We did that while ago.
Yeah, but that was two setbacks. One was the
Oh,
side
geez,
setback. one was-
Look, you're the boss. We have one motion to deny the 7.5 foot setback in the rear, correct?
Yeah, I think what I would suggest is, they haven't really requested it except for tonight. You can just approve the setback of 18-inch habitable space, and then we'll do a separate motion where we deny the requested setback. Because that,
I'm
if
just
you
doing
look in
it,
here,
I'm just doing it reverse.
okay, well, that's the way to look at it too.
Mr. Dykes, how you want to do this?
We can do it in reverse. We can. What I would say is, you could deny the requested variance, and
7.5.
then grant
Habitable.
the habitable space variance.
I don't think you can allow the variance unless you stipulate it's for the cantilever. I mean, if you just allow an 18-inch habitable
Right,
space.
Okay, we're gonna do this. Mr. Fletcher's made a motion to allow the habitable space and the cantilever of the request that was presented. Is that right, Mr. Dykes?
Yeah.
That's your motion.
That's my motion.
Second. Do we have a second? Who's
Second.
seconding?
Either one of us. I'll take it.
Discussion.
I think this entire subdivision is a hardship.
Yeah. I meant to ask.
It's not laid out correctly, and the reason that there are so many problems is that they obviously didn't think through the architecture that was going to be created with the lot sizes, but I don't know how you would turn down this rear yard setback after granting the other one, and I voted no for the other one.
Wait a minute, Jeff. We're not talking about the rear, we're talking about the 18-inch habitable. This is
Right
one
now,
motion.
we can talk about
One
that.
motion. We're gonna do two motions. We're gonna do the 18-inch habitable space variance first.
Okay. Well, given that you can see in the photographs that there are already these 18-inch cantilevers, I think that that's a very reasonable thing to allow them to continue using that design element.
Any other discussion? Mr. Dixon, how do you vote?
Approve the
Aye.
habitable space.
Aye. Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Ms. Fletcher?
Aye.
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 Charlie? Ms.
Aye.
Burgess?
Aye.
All right, that's one motion was approved, that livable space. Now we need a motion to deal with the variance request and the 15.5-foot space.
Go ahead, Charlie.
Me?
I'll make a motion to deny the variance of the 7.5-foot setback.
I have a motion to deny, second.
Second for discussion.
Discussion. Mr. Burgess, we'll start with you. Jeff is gonna be long-winded.
I tend to agree with Jeff and staff. It's hard to deny this when we just approved one. I was thinking the same thing. The whole subdivision's a hardship. I remember when it was being designed, but that's really not what's before us now.
Big difference in the lots.
The difference that I see is a lot smaller, and he hasn't drawn his plans already. He hasn't had them is this long of a time, when working with them, whereas they were told him to stop before. And I think it's a little bit, the guy has 6 lots. I mean, he hadn't. If he
That's not a
wanted to build
factor.
that
We don't
side-
need to discuss that. Just
Okay.
your,
That's where I stand. I think it's a little different just because of the size of the lot.
I personally think the last testimony that was given on the previous lot, if we're gonna throw this in, which I'm not so sure, but since it's all right here on us, is that from the HO Homeowner Association from the last meeting, they have had no, my remembrance, they had no problem with granting the variance in the rear. I think there was a little animosity from the discussion of everything between that builder and this, during this month, that might have led to discussion, well, we're gonna oppose all of it. Maybe they knew this one's coming up. I think that the previous one before us gave testimony and documented testimony from Nikki Lunzak that she provided information that was in the package previously that was a mistake by the homeowner association, and I think there was a lot of information that he was provided that was not giving him false information. I think he proved that the information he provided us, that he tried to work with them, and then I think that whatever reason that occurred, that's why I went along with that one. I think the difference in this one is that you have the neighbors, that is the architect review is opposed of it. She's a neighbor, they work together. The architect is part of this organization. He knows what she is going to pose, and it's hard to, when you have those two, to me it's just two different items from the previous one. And yeah, I didn't like the previous one because of the 5,000 square foot. But also, when you look at the effort that he made, he's a homeowner. He, and you could tell that this was important to him. I think he proved he tried to work with it. This is not the same. This is something I think there may be testimony, this is going to be a rental. This is not a homeowner. It's a small lot. I can't approve the variance. That's my difference in the two.
Mine too.
Well, I was against the variance on the other one, so would be a hypocrite to be in favor of this one, so I'll stick with
No,
that
you
position.
learn from experience.
Well, now you calling me a hypocrite, 'cause I was for that one, I'm for this one. I'll be that hypocrite.
I was for it before I was against it.
I think I'm Baptist, so I get to be a hypocrite. Mr. Anderson?
It's easy for me to be consistent. So, you know how I voted for the last one, so, and the reason why is the same rationale. So, I'm not in favor of variance.
Mr. Dixon?
Well, I think every lot and every set of circumstances have to be weighed on their own merit. And whenever I look at this lot, it's not the same.
Right.
Instead of an odd shaped lot, we've got a homeowner that, because of the way this thing is shaped, he's being impacted on two sides, calling it the front. And I remember we had a restaurant that had something similar to that a while back. And so to call two sides of the front, and then which one of the two sides we're going to call the back, where you're going to impact him is 15 feet. To me, I think if you're going to impact a piece of property, and if you're going to say that there's a 20-foot setback on two sides, let's give the homeowner some relief on this by granting that setback on one side. And the reason I can see my way through on this as opposed to the other one is that the two adjoining neighbors are not impacted in that 15-foot setback. They're only impacted 7.5 feet, if I'm correct. And so I think this piece of property, the way it looks to me, is you got 7.5 with this neighbor. I think it should mirror it. 7.5 with the other neighbor. I think it should mirror it there. I just think whenever we look at the piece of property, it should be measured by its own merit and how pitifully small they are for whatever reason.
We have a motion to deny the variance. We have a second. Ms. Burgess, how do you vote?
Motion to deny the variance.
We have a motion to deny the 7.5-foot request in the rear setback variance. It's a motion to deny the variance.
Nay.
A motion to deny, nay. Charlie? The nay means you're going to approve it. Okay?
No, yeah, I was thinking that too.
Go ahead, Charlie. Come on, Charlie, make a decision.
I'll go aye.
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 Nay.
You understand what happened?
Yes, we got that.
On the 7.5 foot was denied, on the 18-inch habitable livable space is granted. You batting 50-50. Homeowner Association. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. We're moving on to the next one.
We still love each other. Oh, absolutely. We still love our.
Yeah. We're all friends.
Is this the third one?
Yes, sir.
We got 3 of these?
4.
In the same village?
No. These other two they're different.
Okay, I'm sorry. I got to flip over again. The Boxes Contracting Inc. on behalf of JMB Freeport.
Excuse me, may I say something regarding this? Because we're, of course, sitting out here and we're last, and that's the way it goes. But I don't think it's appropriate that these people bring in a project for a variance request before it's even gone to the homeowners association to get their approval.
State your name for the record first.
Jeff Prescott.
Mr. Prescott. Now, go ahead.
I just think it's wasting this time, this board's time, and wasting all of our time to have a project brought in here for a variance request before it's even gone to the homeowners association for approval. Because this homeowners association would have turned it down because of that not complying with the setback.
Sure. I'd like to hear this.
I disagree vehemently with that because I, in fact, for the past 4 or 5 years have been charged with providing opinions to this homeowners association And I have discussed this particular house and this particular setback with the ARB president. So we have had those discussions. What we did not want to do is I did not want to injure my client by spending additional money on additional plans that did not need to be drawn up if this variance were not to be accepted. I saved money, saved time. Thank you.
And that's not something this board can handle. That's something amongst
No,
the
And
ARB.
We
it
just
should be
give them-
noted that we're all still very good friends
Well,
and shook after this.
then, you know, he has
I
something to
understand.
say. We give everybody something to say.
And I happen to be standing in the room and I,
That's enough. Or you had said, we appreciate you commenting. We really do.
It's wasting your time.
It was not a waste.
Until that review board, until that homeowners association has either approved, until they've approved it.
Stay out of this, okay? He's not talking,
Jeff, go
and we're
ahead.
gonna hear him.
Enjoy.
Go ahead.
You understand what I'm saying?
We taking what you're saying under consideration. Yes, sir. We
And
appreciate
I think in
it.
the future, it would be good if there is an association that has to approve plans, that those plans should be approved by the association with a variance. Then it has to come to this board, rather than it coming to this board first, because it may go back to them and they disapprove it.
If it goes to the association, denied by the association, can they still come to the board and build without the homeowner association approval?
It matters what it is. If they're just dealing with county setbacks, then they could come back, they could ask for that. But if it's something in their covenants that requires a more stringent setback, then that would just be an HOA matter.
But
between the owners.
if it's a county issue,
Then it comes here.
it doesn't matter that the homeowner association doesn't have the authority to overpower.
No, what I'm saying is if their covenants have a more restrictive setback, say that
Right.
they've been approved, and instead of
Right.
7.5, they've got 10-foot side setbacks.
Right.
Well, that's between the owner and the HOA.
Right.
We can't come in.
Right.
But if it's just 7.5 and I need a half inch or I need a foot, well, they can't grant that. The HOA has no authority to
But
grant
if he would have went to the homeowner association, and the homeowner association said, no, we're not gonna allow you this 7.5,
then he would have to come to us.
it's
to
not
get-
dead.
Right, he would have
Okay.
to bring that to.
The first one that came through, the HOA said they're gonna fight the variance that he was given.
Yeah.
And so we haven't given them any clear path to move forward. So I'm wondering if Mr. Prescott has a good point, that if there's an HOA that governs the approval, that the HOA process should have played itself out before they're coming to the.
Oh, I think that's definitely ideal, but obviously, there's nothing in the law or the land development code that requires anything like that. Sometimes HOAs are very active, sometimes they're not. I mean, there's all sorts of factors that come into play. But yeah, I understand Mr. Prescott's, concern that, we didn't even have a chance to sit down and kind of go through this with you, so.
Mr. Carpenter, you want to add it to this?
My only comment, I don't disagree with Mr. Prescott as far as, expediency and efficiency. However, there is nothing in the code that would require that, and I don't know that we could prevent them from coming to this board.
Even if they were denied at homeowner association?
Even if they were denied there. I mean, that's still a civil matter. This is a public matter.
Yeah, like I said, if they came in and they said there's a 10-foot setback for side setbacks in our covenants and restrictions, and they came to the county and said, we want you to tell the HOA not to enforce that 10-foot, then I would hope staff and the county attorney would say, you need to go hire an attorney and you need to go fight your HOA. Don't bring that here because that's outside the purview of this board. Now, if they use the same setbacks that we use at the county, then if somebody wants a variance from that, then they have to come to us. The HOA can't do it because the owner's going to get a code violation. Once we find out that they've built within that setback.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Prescott.
Thank you.
We need to move along, but we do appreciate you, though, coming up and giving us some insight. Next item on the agenda, on behalf of J&B 9b5ec Contracting, Dubois. state your name for the record.
Name is Ryan Dubois with Dubois Contracting.
I thank you, sir. We've had a good night tonight. Let's see what you have.
Oh yeah, mine's short and sweet. Basically, I have a corner of a foundation that was roughly a little over 1.5 feet over the setback line, and due to investigating the situation of what happened, initially when we cleared the lot, we left some vegetation separating this lot and the adjoining lot. After we came in and marked the building corners, it was actually Emerald Coast Associates that marked everything out. We realized Emerald Coast Associates.
Does he need to recuse himself from hearing this one?
No, I spoke with him earlier, as far as this isn't necessarily a matter that.
Yeah, it's nothing that was on his end that was.
What
that
if
was
we
there.
want them to tear the slab up? I mean.
It's still not a survey.
It's not a survey.
Okay, go ahead.
Long story short, I mean, basically we had some vegetation that needed to be removed. What we've discovered is when the site crew came in to clear out the northeast corner, through the mix of everything, a corner was moved ultimately. I've used the same site crew several times, same foundation crew on several homes, never noticed anything to be incorrectly placed. Basically went out there and just continued forward. Everything appeared, solid the way it should be, until we came to the foundation survey and realized that a corner had been pulled out, thus resulting in the southeast corner being out of roughly, I think, resulting in a 5.7 foot setback compared to the 7.5 foot.
Now you doing what now? You asked them for.
Do we not have a copy of the current survey?
You should. Yeah, I've submitted everything to date.
The as-built survey.
Have you stopped construction?
Yes, we have. When we realized the issue, we got the house to a safe point. We had just started framing it, and that's when, I spoke with Daryl on the phone, and we all came to the conclusion to.
Is that something we need to look at? Is that the one that you got it marked?
That's the way.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
That's the way it's designed. That's not the existing conditions.
Okay, where's the one that exists then?
You should have. I've submitted two separate.
You submitted it separate?
You should have the way it's designed and the existing foundation plan as part of the packet that I submitted. I don't actually have it on my person, but that was part of it.
What was submitted was the sheet. It says site plan. It's right before the plat, which is the last item.
Yeah, but that's not the one he's saying is right.
This is what we have in the file.
Do you have a copy of the survey?
I don't have the foundation survey that exists.
So we don't know what you're doing or what you asking for, do we?
It was part of the packet that I submitted initially. I submitted, I thought, two separate surveys.
I will go. Okay, I'll go look at. I'll go get the file and just make sure maybe it was one of the larger ones.
And if not, I have it. I can print out and provide. But I thought it was part of the original packet that I submitted.
Do you have it on the?
I have it on a PDF that I received via. I can go with her. And
Go
get it
with
printed.
her and print it out for us, please.
And
We'll give you 5 minutes.
It's
Can we
important to get it.
take a little
If it goes
recess?
favorably,
Go on, take a 15-minute break.
Yep.
Look at it.
Hey, the building's built. The building's built.
It was just a rough situation, so that's how I found out that was a special district.
Wow.
It's for me. I'm already done with
Yeah,
it.
and some of those, it's just like being in an HOA,
Oh, yeah.
but they have more power than the HOA. It's like the county
yeah.
or the city or whatever. So it was, I was like, man.
I got some free legal advice tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What the?
Okay, we're gonna reconvene our meeting.
And Mr. Chair.
Wait a minute, we gotta get Jeff back in here.
Oh.
We gotta get some coffee. He leave.
Okay, when he comes back in, we'll just use it. You're gonna mark this what? applicant Exhibit A.
So enter. Okay, now we get started.
Okay.
We're gonna take this as Exhibit A, applicant Exhibit A, so enter into the record. We have this now, so if you would, point us to where your slab is a V shape, is that right?
V shape?
Z.
Z shape, yeah, I thought it said V, yeah, sorry.
Victor. V
Yeah.
for Victor.
But yeah, as you can see here, ultimately, once we got the foundation survey, we realized the.
It's on this side over here, right?
Correct, the easterly side.
Right.
And the southeast corner resulted in being, over the setback line, a little less than I believe it was, came down to 19 inches, I believe is what it was. And then it tapered back up to roughly being within 1 inch of being the setback on the northeast corner. And like I said, simply the only reason is that northeast corner, we initially had some vegetation, trees, a few other items. When the site crew came in there, it appeared that it had been untouched, but apparently they moved it, resulting in throwing everything out of whack, which apparently they pulled from east to west when they laid it out, resulting in this.
So what are you asking for? You asked, would you like to have a variance that the encroachment, the variance would, let's see, you could do that as the variance, the encroachment into the variance would, you could get a variance for the encroachment of the house?
Yes.
Or are you asking for a 5.7 all the way up? You asking for a 5.7 all the way up, right?
I believe so. Yeah, that way they would all fall in line inside that setback, so correct.
But we could,
If that would be.
you'd be happy with the variance would be the footprint of the house that is built in the variance.
Exactly. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone from the audience like to have a comment? Mr. Carpenter, Miss Vivian, what do you think? You can have a seat. We'll call you back up.
Oh, okay.
Not all the way back there in the back corner. You stay right over there.
Request a staff report to be entered into the record. We have no objection.
So enter. Anything else you want to add?
Yes, sir.
Nope.
Motion to close public discussion.
Wait a minute. What are you doing? Any questions for anybody? Motion to close public discussion.
Motion to close public discussion.
Thank you, Charlie. Second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Motion.
I make a motion to approve his variance in the floor plan that it is now, conditioned upon this survey,
That encroaches into the,
as it encroaches into that setback.
So we're going to provide and you want to attach this
Yeah.
as part of it and be 1.8 or 1 foot 8 inches?
11, 1 foot 11, isn't
that's on one end. One end, it's 1 inch on one end, and then it's
A little more on the other.
19 inches on the other.
The survey also is showing that the front porch is in the front setback.
About one inch, is that right?
0.3 is
Well, yeah, he's
4
looking
inches.
at the concrete porch foundation. It's 19.7 from that corner to the lot line.
But if it was, if the Charlie's motion is to grant the variance of the encroachment in
Yeah, that's the only request we have at this point.
we could go ahead and add the other one to correct it.
Just think that would be a good idea.
My motion is to do it like it sits on this drawing.
Your motion is to grant a variance of the encroachment and the setback on this site plan,
Yes.
Or boundary survey.
on boundary
Boundary
survey.
survey.
Discussion? I started you last time, right?
You
I'll start
did.
with you. Mr. Dixon, how do you vote?
Approve it.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Fletcher? Aye.
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 You got your variance. You know, you also have a 3-inch up there on the front, so just remember that. Okay? Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Who was our second on that?
Mr. Fletcher.
Okay, Mr. Fletcher.
Item number 4. Who's here for item number 4?
So I need to give you this one.
Where's Mr. Prescott?
Jill and Andy Jordan.
Yes, sir.
You Miss Jordan?
Yes.
State your name for the record.
Jill Jordan.
Thank you.
So just to summarize what's going on, if that's okay?
You need to tell us why you were here, what we're supposed to do, and why we should do it.
Yes, sir. We bought a lot in Inlet Beach back in 1996, my husband and I, and we got it surveyed back then, and it's got kind of a strange easement. I don't know if you guys have the paperwork. I've got a bunch of stuff.
Well, tell me what paperwork you're looking at, or you're looking for.
Well, there's a, can I hand it out to you, or can I hand you some stuff? Or?
I can't hear you, ma'am.
Sorry, can I hand y'all some
Well,
stuff?
let's see if we have it.
Okay.
That
Well,
does
so
not
anyway, it's
appear
got,
to be in our
the
packet.
point I was trying to make is it has an easement that is 33 feet.
Right.
And the length of the lot's 100. All right, so that's from the front to the back. And when we bought the lot, the surveyors told us, and we also heard that from a Walton County planner, that the 33 was what we should go by when we're working on the buildable envelope, because it overrode a 20-foot setback. But then, so 20 years later, we have saved our money, and we were going to go build a house. We got the plans done. We got Jeff as our Florida architect. We got Steve back there as our builder. And now we got the building permit denied because we learned that we have to go 20 feet back from the 33 feet, plus another 15 in the back. Yeah, and so I talked to somebody here today about that, Tim, and he didn't even know that. He thought it was the 20 or the 33, but not both.
So you have a 33 easement on your property, is that correct? And you thought the 20-foot setback was from your property line and not your easement line, is that correct?
We thought that the 33-foot easement replaced the setback. So you wouldn't have to do a 33-foot easement into the property plus another 20.
Okay, you thought the 33-foot, you didn't have to do the 20 if you honored the 33-foot, so you would build a house next to the easement.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know that probably wasn't correct. The houses in front of ours and behind ours are on the easement. And I'm not saying that means ours has to be, but we thought we could do it. There's a house that's directly in front of ours that's in a picture. I don't know if y'all have this.
No, we don't have that. Whatever you want to enter, man.
Oh, cool.
Get in,
Okay.
Bring it in, that way we've got your.
I've got copies of it.
So what are you asking for?
I'm looking so originally we wanted a variance to build right on the easement line because we wanted, maybe we could get a view of the beach from there because we're a couple blocks back. But then I talked to Vivian, she said, that they're really trying to reduce variances and people trying to build outside the lines and stuff. Just ask for what you need to make the house that we have paid for, the plans we paid for, fit. And so now I went and I said, well, let's do a 10-foot variance. And then I went down and met with Rich and Betty Letcher at the lot to show them what we were trying to do. But I understand that they don't really want to give any more variances, but I don't think that our variance would affect the neighborhood. Inlet Beach is laid back and there's different houses everywhere else. That's what we liked about it. There's not covenants. There's not an architectural review board, thank goodness, right? You can.
Do you have 15 on the rear?
Yeah, yes, sir.
So you have 15 on the rear. You asked them for 10 on the front.
Yeah, but I'm not anymore. What I decided to do after talking to them was go for just a 5-foot variance on the front and a 4-foot variance in the rear, just to try to make it fit on the,
So you moved it?
Yeah.
You asked them for a 5-foot variance on the front, which would give you a 15-foot setback from a 33-foot easement, but you
Right.
also asked them for a 4-foot variance in the rear, which would give you 11 foot.
That's right.
And
That's what I'm asking for tonight, is
Okay.
for you guys to consider that. We need a 3-bedroom house. It's like, I don't know, how many square feet is it? 1,800 condition, you know.
It was 1,800 condition.
Beth is my friend who helped me come up with the design.
Could I ask a quick question? Sure. You decided on these setbacks based on talking to who?
neighbors.
Well, yeah, I mean, I knew, when I figured out it's not a good idea to try to build right at the easement, because there's no precedent, just because somebody else did it doesn't mean you can do it, right? And so we're like, the minimum we needed was 9 feet. We thought we just could do 10 feet to have a little bit extra room, but then, you know, I talked to Rich and Betty Letcher, and I'm like, I understand they're trying to maintain the integrity.
They're
so
your neighbor?
They live in the neighborhood.
They're your neighbors?
Yeah.
That's what he was asking?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yes.
So you're trying to work with your neighbors?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
so I'm sorry, yes, sir. We walked the lot, and, you know, they were really nice, and we're just trying to get a house that'll fit there. But if we can't get this one to fit, we've got to go back and redraw the plans, and we've got to go to 3 stories, because we've got 2 kids and in-laws, and we just want some space.
So you're going with 2 stories now?
Yes, it's a pilot
If you can
with
get
2.
this.
Would you be willing to build your house right on the 33-foot easement line in
Oh, we'd
line
love
with
to,
everybody
that's what we
else?
wanted, yeah.
That's what the neighbors are opposed to.
Along, in line with everybody else?
Right, on that street.
I'm gonna have to object to that.
Well,
We're not asking.
If I could just
What?
interject, in this particular circumstance, the 33-foot easement, we are absolutely going to protect that from the planning department, because that's public access, plus this is near the beach also.
Right.
We did not propose to give that away. However, in this particular circumstance, there is a hardship of the land based on the size of this particular lot. The code does allow, since it's less than 10,000 square feet, for a variance to be requested on the side setbacks to reduce those to 5 feet.
When you said you're going to protect the 33, I absolutely agree with that.
And the setback gets measured from the greater extent of that 33 feet.
She's
as
saying
opposed
it
to
was,
the lot line.
it was 33 plus 20.
Right. Absolutely.
But I
Because I don't remember that coming up in the.
That is the way
Yeah.
the code is written.
That was part of it too.
Yeah, so we were kind of going like, maybe we're non-conforming, or, you know, because we're so small, and
I got something I've got
This
to.
is a non-conforming lot under the code.
I understand that and understand your position that you've just taken on this easement, and this is totally out of, may not be in this, but De Francesca's. There is a guy that is negotiating with the county to build an easement. And it shouldn't have never come back before us, and you didn't take a hard stand on that as you are this one.
No, sir. I'm taking a hard stand on that one, and we're in court with the Burt Harris claim, or we're about to be. We're in mediation, which you have to go through, and a Burt Harris claim
But
before you
there
actually
again,
go to court.
If it was never allowed to come back before this board, it wouldn't be where it is today, because his only appeal was to the appellate court. And when he didn't file the appeal, his appeal process was up. Legal counsel that time allowed it to come back. If you would have took a stand against legal counsel at the time, as the planning director said, doing a stop.
I was not the planning director when that happened, sir.
Okay.
If I were, I would have. And I took
Okay.
a stand as the planning manager in that particular case, and I was overruled by the planning director.
Well, I'm glad to see that you are defending the easements, because that one is a joke to Walton County. Absolutely. Now then, we'll go back, and I'm sorry about that. But go ahead with your request.
Yeah, so, you know, we were thinking that we have a bit of a hardship because of the lot size, and the fact that we have a certain house size that we need. We don't think we're asking for too much, and I thought I was maybe being a little bit, I guess, compromising to not go that close to the easement. We wanted to go over there, but I understand that. We didn't want to go on the easement, but since the other houses were lined up right that way, we're like, yeah, it would probably look better. But we just want to make the house fit on the lot. I mean,
You're
and-
asking for a 5-foot setback in the front, and you're asking for a 4-foot setback in the rear.
Yes, and I do have some support for like our next door
We're
neighbor.
we're gonna give everybody the opportunity to speak, then you're gonna get the chance
Oh,
to
yeah,
come
no,
back.
they're not here.
So, they're not here,
No,
okay, go
I've got
ahead.
the emails in there. So- Oh,
This drawing, or this document, the houses on either side of you are built to the 33-foot easement line. Is
Yeah.
that correct?
well, it's close if it's not, I don't know if it's exactly there, but it's within.
Do you have a survey that
Yes.
shows the placement of the adjacent?
Of the other house? But we did measure it.
Jeff,
It looks like
Can
what,
I ask why is the concern?
Why the other houses would be
Yeah,
built
I mean,
directly to
no,
the third?
why is the concern here? I mean, I'm just asking.
What the other houses are?
Yeah.
I think the streetscape is, if it's more consistent, is a better look for the neighborhood, and it also brings up why are the other houses built with a different standard than is being applied today?
Those other houses could have been built back to the time that there was not as much observation at the time. Depends on when they were built, because a lot of those easements, back then, like 38.
The house to the north.
Mr. Prescott, if you want to say something, I'll give you a chance in a minute. I'm having a conversation right here, trying to get his idea of why. And I'm just asking him, and you'll get the chance to come up. So go ahead, Jeff.
Well, the lot line goes to the center of the street.
Okay.
And you're applying the easement, and I understand the need for the easement.
Okay.
And so the houses are built to the easement line
Okay.
because they can't go forward to that, but they own all the way to the center of the street.
Okay.
I don't understand why we would apply an additional 20-foot setback to the easement line. That doesn't compute. I think you should absolutely protect the easement, but then to penalize them and push them back another 20 feet doesn't make sense.
Where's the roadway?
I've got a color picture if that helps. Do you want this? It's kind of bigger.
Yes.
Here's another one.
We'll need to keep one of these. Yeah, hold on one second. You wanna give us all this or just this color picture?
Jeff?
You want some more of those?
No, but can I give those away? Okay, yeah, sure.
Okay, so,
Yeah, he's got
just
one.
for clarification on the record, you've got applicant's Exhibit A, which was the first packet that starts with the February 5th, 2018 letter, and then this will be applicant's Exhibit B, composite. I'll hand that over to you.
Let me ask you this, Jeff. You got a 33-foot easement. You have a 20-foot pavement in that easement. Your property line goes into the center of the easement, right? And your setback starts at the 20 foot? Starts at the center line of the pavement? So you have 10 feet of pavement and your house will be 10 feet away. And I understand what you're saying.
What she was saying is that she thought that the easement superseded the 20-foot setback, obviously from the middle of the road. That doesn't make sense, that the easement overlaid on the lot gave them, where's that drawing?
Could I say something about that too? We did come in and talk with Tim today about it, and he thought that was the case. We thought we were gonna be able to walk out without having a hearing. He thought that the 33 overrode the 20. So we just weren't getting, I think the thing was, we just didn't have the kind of feedback that we needed to make a good decision on what we were gonna put on.
Did you say Tim Brown gave you information counter to what the county's enforcing today?
But we were just talking. I wouldn't want to hold him like legally liable for it or anything, but we were talking this morning and he didn't know it. So I'm just saying there's just not a lot of published information to me that you could find.
Let us talk to Mr. Carpenter. Mr. Carpenter.
Oh.
I'll apologize for Mr. Brown possibly giving erroneous information, and I'll correct that first thing in the morning.
Well, don't.
However,
It's okay.
They absolutely need.
5.0406, right-of-way protection. The methodology for measuring the setback, the front setback is from the greater extent of the property line, the right-of-way protection for the class of street that is spelled out here, and this right-of-way exceeds what we would require. But the measurement methodology in 5.0406 requires us to measure from the greater extent of the lot line, the extent of the easement, or the right-of-way protection that's specified in this section. The right-of-way protection specified in this section is less than the easement, so we have to measure from the greater extent of the easement. Property line's in the middle of the street.
Right.
And yes, we've had in the past approvals of building permits that measured the front setback from the center line of a roadway. Does that make any sense? It's wrong. And because it's wrong, we're not going to continue to make that same error.
We're taking it. Read that to me again. The methodology of measurement.
This is in section 5.0406. It's online and available to anybody. Determination of the applicable setback. And I'm going to skip to the measurement section. The minimum setback for structure, measurement of setback. The distance shall be measured in a straight line from the center line of any right-of-way to the foundation of any vertical structure. Sorry, I just lost my place here. The minimum shall be measured from the greater limit of the right-of-way, which is 66 feet, or 33 feet on their lot. The right-of-way protection area, which would be 25 feet from the property line. So the proper measurement is from the extent of the easement.
But by your own admission, it exceeds what the current standards would be, which is 25?
It exceeds what the required right-of-way for that class of street is. That doesn't mean we don't protect that additional 16 feet. I mean, this is very clear. It's not in the normal section of the code where setback methodology is discussed, and that's probably why someone has missed this in the past. Doesn't mean it isn't the law.
But if there's other houses that are on either side that's significantly into it, would you be open to applying the 25 instead of the 33?
No. Just because it's been done wrong in the past doesn't mean we're supposed to continue to make the same mistake. In fact, the grand jury was quite clear in that particular point. And we had that little session a few months back. We ain't going back there.
I think Jeff, is saying that you got a house here and hers is going instep. You got to tear these houses down.
At some point, those houses will be redeveloped. I mean, we got brand new houses in Rosemary Beach that aren't even being lived in.
I think we chewed on that enough. That's not what you come here for. You came here for a 5 and a 4. What is it?
I thought it was, if she were to build at the easement line.
We're not building at the easement line.
I know, but if she were, would that be?
We're not discussing it no more. That's not what she. Look, we're not discussing it. No.
Could I offer something?
No.
Okay.
She's asking for a 5-foot variance and a 50 and a 20-foot, which will give her 15 feet from the right of way. That's all we're going to discuss from now on. And she has it for a 4 foot in the back, which is 11. Okay. That's what she asked. Mr. Prescott, you got something to say?
The only thing was, I wanted to point out that the house to the north of that, to the north side of this house, was built according to the PA website, was built in 2016.
We don't.
Okay, it wasn't like it was
look,
15 or 20 years ago.
Call code enforcement, let them come before us. Anything else? Yes, sir. Come up and state your name for the record.
Are you done?
Oh, yeah. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, are you through? We're going to get you a chance to come back.
Oh, okay, yeah, I was just, I just want to make sure you guys know we weren't going to try and get on the easement at all.
Just just sit down and, yes, sir. State your name for the record.
My name is Rich Jaffe. I'm the president of the Historic Inlet Beach Neighborhood Association. Ms. Jordan was referencing conversations with myself and Betty Letcher, who's another one of our board members, as well as the fact that we live in Inlet Beach. I live just a few doors away. There's a lot of stuff here that has not been clarified, and quite frankly, our board is against this variance for a variety of reasons. First and foremost, there really is no hardship here. In our conversations with Ms. Jordan, she told us that a friend of hers drew up the first drawings of this house. She then went to an architect, paid the architect to fine-tune those things, proceeded, got a builder. I met her builder over there, as a matter of fact, when he put up the plan box. Said, "What are you going to build?" He told me. We were fine with that. What Ms. Jordan hasn't told you is that her issue, one of her issues at least, is the fact that she said she doesn't want to pay any more to get these plans amended and changed to fit the lot. None of us would be here if people built houses or structures that were appropriate for the lots. That's one of the biggest problems here. This is not a personal issue, and I said as much to Jill, and so did Betty when we were at that lot. The issue for them, as she told us, was that she had an architect and she had a builder who got the numbers wrong. And now she found out subsequently, by the way, no dirt has been turned on this. She found out that the numbers were wrong because those people did not do their jobs well.
I'm sorry, which numbers were wrong?
The numbers on the setbacks,
Oh,
the 33 and then the 20, they were unaware of it. They didn't do the job right. There are issues on the design of this house, such as an elevator on one side, and there's a bathtub hanging off the back, which may be one of the requirements for the setback. It's also something Ms. Jordan told us, well, you know, I could do without the bathtub on the back of the house, but I'd really like to have it. Okay. To answer a couple of the questions that have come up about the other houses, the houses that she is referencing that are closer than where she's being able to build are 1950s, probably block homes that were there before any of these regulations were in place. The other house that Mr. Prescott was just talking about faces Walton Rose. It's not the same street. She's facing Wall Street. It's around the corner, if you will. That 33-foot easement, call it a right-of-way, whatever you want, is from the center of the street over. Everybody is responding to that. You know, everybody faces the same dilemma there. I don't think you can subtract that 33 feet from the 99 feet of the size of the property realistically, because you never could have built on it in the first place, and you can't build on the 10 feet of roadway that's out in front of it in any fashion. We have two local architects, one of whom is on our board, Frank Green. You probably know him well. He's a supervising architect for Rosemary Beach. Also Darrell Russell, who lives just around the corner. Also a very well-known architect, both of whom have said there is no problem building on this lot. What Ms. Jordan should do is go back to the architect who designed it incorrectly and say, modify this, fix it, make it fit the lot. That's what most people do. When you want to buy a piece of property, I did it. You get what the property looks like, you go to an architect, you say, what can I build here? You know this. We have a list of emails. I think Mr. Fletcher got a number of them from some of our residents. They say, as an example, simple fix, get a house plan or modify existing plan to fit the lot. I have bought several lots for spec houses. First step is to find a plan that fits the lot. Another one of our neighbors said, a designer, engineer, or project manager has never been and should not ever become an excused point. These people are paid professionals who do this for a living and know how to go about determining county codes and setbacks prior to ever accepting a project. Another one of our neighbors said, sounds like they have three good options. Redo of plans. I'm sure the architect is willing to correct or rework them for free. That is not a hardship at all. We all redraw our plans back and forth until they work. Let me suggest to you, gentlemen.
Sir, can we have a copy of that you just read from?
I think Mr. Fletcher has a lot of those emails.
I don't have it.
Oh, these are quotes, but yeah, sure. I'll give it to you
Just give it to the
when we're done.
secretary.
I would suggest to you that if you grant a variance as a result of this, these mistakes, then what you are doing is setting a precedent whereby anybody can get a variance by simply telling the architect or the builder, hey, screw it up, and I'll go before the board and get a variance. It was a mistake that was done before this stuff was even put on paper. The numbers are simply wrong. To build a house on that property, all Ms. Jordan has to do is get somebody to correct the mistakes these other guys made and put an appropriate house on that lot.
Thank you, sir.
I have a question for somebody. The houses to the north and south of it, are they 2 or 3 story, do you know?
They vary, you know. The little 50s block houses, they're 1 story. The big party house on the corner is probably 4 stories. Generally speaking, Ms. Jordan has said in her letter to you that she has some options. One is to redo it, one is to build vertically, one is to build a rental property. Quite frankly, we took those options as something of a veiled threat. If I can't build what I want, here's what I'm going to do.
Well, let's just try to finish this up. Has he addressed your question?
Would you prefer a 2 or 3 story? If she could build a 3 story within the footprint, would you prefer that?
It is 3 story.
Yeah, it's parking underneath and then 2 stories up.
Okay.
The houses in Inlet Beach, as she mentioned,
Yeah.
run the gamut. They're all over the place. The only thing we ask is build it within the footprint, just like everybody else has to do, without coming and asking for a variance.
Very good. Anyone else? Come up, please state your name for the record.
Danny Horsby, live at Inlet Beach, 202 Pompano. I don't see a hardship. Architect missed the setbacks, surveyor missed the setbacks, and now everybody else is going to pay for it? No.
Okay.
That's all I got.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Hang on. Anyone else? Well, okay, go ahead. I thought you was, go ahead. Go ahead. I thought she standing up to do the final.
Hi, my name is Beth Hagberg. I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and I am the friend of Jill Jordan, who designed the plans to begin with. I practice architecture in Atlanta, but I don't practice on the beach, and I don't know enough about the building codes, which is why we ended up with Mr. Prescott, who I think has designed a very nice plan. Jill and Andy are modest people. Jill is huge into the environment. She's on an environmental board in the city of Decatur, where she and I are neighbors. Really, the only option that Jill is faced with in order to get what she wants is she's going to have to build higher, and she's trying to avoid putting another story on because it's not really her style to go big. She's trying to keep it smaller, which is why asking for the variance from the setbacks to stay a story shorter, but just a little over the setbacks. Jill and Andy have owned this property since 1996, which is longer than all of the properties that border theirs. They have just chosen now to build out their property. We still stick by our position that the 33-foot roadway and public utilities easement is a hardship. Having the setback from the easement is what has caused the problem there. Inlet Beach was designed as a traditional neighborhood plan, and per this plan, which was established in November of 1996, the maximum residential density that was allowed for all the units should be 4 units per acre, which means that it would be a approximately 10,000 square foot piece of property. Jill and Andy's property is half of that, which is why we're dealing with these issues of pushing up against the setbacks. I just wanted to give you all some more things to think about while you deliberate here, but I really don't think that asking for a 5-foot and a 4-foot setback is asking that much. And honestly, I think that it's a better solution than having to build higher. And I think it's less imposing around to the neighborhood to stay lower.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Let me ask her a quick question. You had said you weren't familiar with the setbacks in Walton County when you designed the house?
Actually, no, I was familiar with the, okay, I used, whenever I did the schematic design plan, I used the information that was provided by the surveyor.
Okay, and the surveyor wasn't aware of the setbacks?
Well, apparently, he left off the 20-foot setback to the 33-foot easement. And so that was that. No, my concern, the reason I didn't pursue this is because of the hurricane wind loads and things like that, which I was concerned about.
I have a,
Who was your surveyor?
On there?
Well, they're rascals.
our office did the survey. We correctly showed the 33-foot easement. I don't think I have a conflict of interest here. We did not show or state setbacks. It's the property owner's responsibility to research that, but we clearly showed the 33-foot easement and the dimensions of the lot.
Okay. Is that what you wanted to say?
Yeah, that's it.
No, I thought it was something else before I was asking who's the survey.
Darrell, when was this lot platted originally?
It's a portion of a original government plat in 1953.
And what were the setbacks in 1953?
I have no clue.
They're like 1.8 acres, aren't they? 2 acres, they're bigger tracts. And this guy went in there and broke them up.
Yes, this is a portion of a government lot. They were all 1 1/4 acre or thereabouts.
1 1/4.
Can I make a comment on that? I was trying to really research this for non-conforming lots and what, there was an example given, and I highlighted that in the sheet that I handed out, that if your lot's non-conforming, maybe
We're
you want
gonna
to go
give you the opportunity to finalize this, but we fixing to wrap it up. I gotta talk to county, then you get to come back.
Okay, that's good. But there was something along that. That is if it's platted before 1972, they're automatically given a 5-foot setback. That's what I found online.
You can speak that. Do you need to get that? Did that answer your question, anything?
Yes.
Planning?
Mr. Chairman, this is a non-conforming lot. It does not meet the minimum standards for a lot applicable in the 1975 subdivision regulations. That's what our current land development code refers to. In 1975 subdivision regulation, the minimum lot size was 10,000 square feet. In our present comp plan land development code, the minimum lot size is that minimum necessary to meet all of the requirements in the land development code, which includes all setbacks.
How's that a non-conforming lot?
It's less than 10,000 square feet.
But it wasn't less than, this lot was not platted. It was part of a larger.
If it existed in public records
Prior
to the adoption of our code,
of 1992?
prior to the adoption of the comprehensive plan, which the first one was adopted in 1990, didn't get approved. There was another one in 92, did not get approved. Finally, in 1996, November 7, 1996, the state found our comprehensive plan in compliance.
And this lot was platted prior to that?
Yes, sir. It is clearly a non-conforming lot under the current regulations. And it is, to speak to the applicant's point, the code does allow a variance to be requested to reduce the side setbacks on a non-conforming lot that's less than 10,000 square feet to 5 feet. Code speaks to that. And so, there is some additional relief available on the side setbacks in the code.
But it's not in the front and rear?
Not in the front and the rear. In this particular case, the front setback has to be measured from the greater extent of that 33-foot easement. Now, they are proposing to park underneath the building. And one of the reasons that we are so adamant about protecting this 33-foot setback is because from time to time, and you're probably going to get one next month, people are going to come and ask to park in that or build right up to it. And there are lots of cases where In previous years, the county allowed people to build right up to the edge of that setback, which means all of their parking is within the 33-foot easement. In this case, it's probably not that circumstance because they do have parking underneath the building.
What's the staff finding on this, on the 5 and the 4?
I think we found that they followed the process to request a variance.
Meets the criteria for the variance set forth in the code.
So you would grant them the 5-foot side setbacks?
I can't do that.
We can give them
Y'all
that?
can.
We can do that, yeah.
Ms. Jordan.
Let's get finished up with him.
And did we, Matt or Vivian, did we already put this into evidence?
No.
Okay.
No, we did not.
Yes, if we could request a staff report be entered into.
Thank you. Please come back up. We need to finalize this.
If you rotate your house 90 degrees, we can give you 5-foot side setbacks and your house fits on the lot without a variance, other than what we're allowed to give.
Yes, I did have a question because I want to make sure I understand the policy. If the lot is non-conforming, I mean, doesn't that mean you can request a variance though? If it's
You
non-conforming?
can request
Okay.
a variance
To
if
the
it is
side
conforming.
setbacks from
To the
7.5 to 5 foot. So I
Because
just did
the-
some simple math, and you have a 50-foot wide lot. So if you have 5-foot side setbacks, you'd have a 40-foot buildable width. Your house is 40 feet with the bump out for the. So I would think that if you just rotated the house, that
So it would kind of go catty corner?
no.
Rotate it.
Oh, all
90
the way?
degree turn.
Oh, yeah.
Take the front.
I kind of wanted the.
So you had porches that were facing due south. So when they tear that house down next to you and build a 5-story monster or a 4-story monster, they're going to
Yeah.
completely block that view that
Right,
you're thinking you're going to have.
Yeah, I got it.
So
understand.
you can keep the floor plan that you have without
Yeah.
doing any additional work if the house is rotated 90 degrees.
Yes, where it would face Wall Street.
Well, so the front porches would face Wall Street.
Or make it wider. Make the house wider, right? Shorter and
Okay,
wider.
so I
Your
did.
call.
I did have, okay, the reason I was kind of pursuing that is if you read the non-conforming lot of record thing or whatever, I mean, I don't want to go through the whole thing, but it says, let's see, cannot meet the minimum site design requirements of Chapter 5 of the code without diminishing the building area so as to render its use for a single-family residence unfeasible, they may be considered as conforming lots for purposes of construction of a single-family home, and the setback requirements may be reduced by the minimum extent necessary to accommodate the structure. That's what I was asking for. In no case shall the minimum side yard be less than 5 feet, the minimum rear yard be less than 10 feet, and the minimum front yard be less than 15 feet.
Is that
So-
in the non-conforming statute?
That language is in the code, but I don't think it applies here.
Why not? It's a non-conforming lot.
Because you can build a house here. We typically apply that language when the lot is completely occluded by wetlands.
Now read that again. Non-conforming, read it again.
Okay. All right, so single-family residential lots of record that are non-conforming and cannot meet the minimum site design requirements of Chapter 5 of this code, which that's where the setbacks, I mean, y'all know that, I'm sure, without so diminishing the building area so as to render its use for a single-family residence unfeasible, may be considered as conforming lots for purposes of construction of a single-family home, and the setback requirements may be reduced by the minimum extent necessary, which was what we went down to accommodate the structure. In no case shall the minimum side yard be less than 5 feet, the minimum rear yard less than 10 feet, and the minimum front yard be less than 15 feet.
All right, Mike.
But applying the setbacks that are currently being enforced, you have a 30 by 35 building footprint, which is more than enough to build a single-family home.
Well, I mean, if you look at it, we have an elevator in there for my in-laws, and we have 3 bedrooms. That won't fit the current buildable area. Now, if you gave me the 5-foot side setbacks, it would. We'd have to turn the house to face,
Mike said that you get the 5-foot setbacks. Non-conforming gets a 5-foot setbacks
on the side though?
on the
You
side.
have to give
But
it.
not on, nothing
Pardon me?
on,
I can't give that. You have to
No,
give
but
that.
you read something in the code.
Yes, sir, but when we went through the grand jury proceedings, prior to that, the director could approve that. After that, the
No,
director determined.
Mac, I'm just trying to get a clear understanding here. You said non-conforming lot that we could take and grant the 5-foot.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That you, more or less, you couldn't on the rear and you couldn't on the front, right? But we
Right.
can on the, okay. If we give you 5 foot on each side, you good with that? Or give you, 2.5? You'd be a 2.5 variance and on the 7.5, it'd be 5-foot variance. You get 2.5 feet on each
Why
side.
not give them 5 on each?
Not into the side setbacks.
You get,
is it just, okay, so
Go
it's
from
this,
7.5
on both
to
sides,
5.
you can get 2.5 feet on both sides.
So that the house fits as drawn, rotated.
yeah, the thing
with
is, I
port-
guess, if I'm building this house down there, I just didn't want to face
We're
Wall
trying to
Street.
help you here.
Yeah, I understand.
You can make it shorter and wider, but we're
Yeah,
fixing to find
I guess we can just go higher, I mean,
Okay.
because I don't want to face Wall Street. I mean,
Why?
if we have to turn it, all my porches are facing, they're facing like inward. I mean,
You're facing the porches due south.
no, that's where I'm facing them now, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, to catch the breeze and to enjoy it.
Right. But
I just-
eventually somebody's gonna
Oh,
build.
the view's fine, yeah, I mean, I know, we'll have to peek around or whatever.
I think
the-
we have addressed all the issues
Okay.
here tonight. I think we need to move along.
Okay, I'm
I think
sorry.
you stated yours
Yes, sir.
for the records, and I think
The neighbor
everyone has
and-
pointed out.
Right adjacent to me in that block house supports the variance, just saying that.
Okay.
Okay.
Motion to close it.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, aye? Aye. Motion.
I have a motion to approve the variance requesting approval for a variance of 5 feet from the front setback on the east side and 4 feet from the rear setback on the west side of the lot.
You motion to approve a 5-foot on the front and a 5-foot variance in the rear on
the pole.
Have a motion, a second.
I don't think we should make a motion for something they don't have.
Wait a minute now, we got a
All right.
motion, we need a second, and then we discuss it. Motion, second.
So just so we're clear, the motion was made to grant the variance request as requested.
Right.
As the applicant requested. Okay.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion.
It would fit well with the neighboring lots, who are already at 33 feet. I agree with staff, they're parking underneath. It's effectively the same area of variance as if you would approve 5 feet on the sides. So I don't see a big problem with it.
With granting the variance.
Correct.
Charlie?
I would rather see her stay at a story shorter and go higher.
I think she should go wider instead of,
I do too.
instead of narrow. If you got the opportunity, you can go 2.5 feet on each side. I think that's the way it should go. That's how I feel about that. But
To grant a variance.
And I think that's a better variance than what she asked for. I think the reasoning that she asked for what she wants is not because that it's a hardship, because it's a want.
Yeah, there's no way I can see it as a hardship.
Yeah?
Yeah, I really want to help, but I'm not seeing the hardship here because it is a buildable footprint.
Yeah.
And there's a number of houses there that have gone higher because they had to. But I wish there was a way to rotate the house and give you the plan that you've already got and just appreciate the sunset. I mean, the sunrise facing east, and you still get the view to the south. And everything works as drawn.
Mr. Anderson?
I think granting the variance is a common sense solution.
Mr. Dixon? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I know.
I think we have the setbacks are there for a reason. I think, the excuse that we're going to match code violation for code violation is what's got us in this point in the first place.
We have a motion to approve the variance as requested, 5 foot on the front, 4 foot in the rear. Mr. Burgess, how do you vote?
Nay.
Charlie?
Aye.
Nay?
Nay.
Jeff?
Nay.
Mr. Anderson?
Very loud. Aye.
Mr. Dixon?
Nay.
You have 2 ayes and 5 nays, so the variance was denied. You have 30 days after we signed the final order to appeal the decision of the board.
May I make another motion for it?
Nope. That's it. Thank you very much. Everyone had the opportunity to read the minutes? No. Well, you said I don't need to vote on it, just sign it? You know what you said?
That's right.
Any changes? Are there any additions or changes?
Hearing none?
Okay, I'll sign a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Do we need to approve the minutes?
No, he just did.
I think we do. He don't think we do.
I promise
think
you-
we
I
do.
promise
We've been
you.
doing it for 23 years, but he keeps changing.
Well, I actually read them, and they're fine.
I think next time we're gonna approve it. I think we're
I'm gonna bring you Robert's rules.
You changed it. You changed the wording of the book.
They approved.
Right, and Robert's
Motion, all in
rules.
favor, aye?
Well, they have a guy,
Adjourn.
if you go to the RPOF quarterly, they have a guy that's an expert on rules of order, and he said the
I'm aware of all
minutes
this, so we
and the
need
treasury
to
report
Mr.
are
Dykes,
not to be voted on.
did you keep up with all that?
We'll try to. We'll see when I send you his draft orders.
Mr. Chairman,
The minutes.
Did we had an
If
adjournment?
there are,
didn't
you.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
adjourned.
okay.
He
Who
says
did
they
that?
approved with
He did,
additions
started,
or corrections.
he seconded it. Yes, sir, Mr.
Chairman.
Prescott.
If Ms. Jordan decides to rotate the house on the lot, does she have to come back before this board to get the variance on the side
You
yards?
will have to now.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could have,
Thank you.
yeah.
We gave her the opportunity, Mr. Prescott. We gave her the opportunity.
Right. Either one.